to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We will call our meeting to order. Thank you very much, Mr. Battle. We begin our meeting today with a risk management overview by Joyce Dias, our Risk Management and Purchasing Director. So Joyce, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners, and staff.
Good afternoon.
Joyce Dias, Risk Management and Purchasing Director. Today I'm going to speak to you about our city's Health and Wellness Connection. Health and wellness in the workplace can improve employee health behaviors and lower risk and reduce the incidence of chronic diseases such as heart disease, cancer, stroke, and diabetes. These are the most expensive diseases to treat. Sorry. Studies show that employees are more likely to be on the job and performing well when they are in optimal health. By providing our employees with healthy options and initiatives, we help prevent sickness, fatigue, and mental burnout. United Healthcare, our administrator for our health plan, provides a healthy discount for using in-network providers. Our on-site clinic calculates lost work time savings at $787,893 for fiscal year 2020. Where a physician's office visit averages 3 hours, our on-site clinic visit average is 30 minutes. Lost work time savings equals 2.5 hours per visit. Pharmacy rebates received through contractual agreements with United Healthcare Pharmacy Benefits Management are deposited back into the health plan. In our city's health plan, both the employer and the employees contribute to our self-funded plan. And the benefits of being self-funded are plan design flexibility, customized administration of the health plan through our third-party administrator, and it allows the city to control the cash flow with wide latitude in financing. The city currently has a $435,000 self-insured retention for stop loss, which is the same as a deductible. Any one health claim that exceeds the $435,000 in a given calendar year, the expenses over that amount will be reimbursed to the city by the stop loss carrier and placed back into the health plan. Annually, risk management, our benefits broker, and actuary reevaluate and recommend the amount of self-insured retention for the next calendar year. That way it balances the cost of premium versus the cost of claims expense for our stop loss. It takes a team of subject matter experts from our internal staff to our on-site clinic and our employee benefits broker and third-party administrator to support our self-insured health plan. Working together, we support a healthy workforce while encouraging health maintenance and healthy lifestyle to our employee population. United Healthcare and HealthStat, through a business agreement, share data to assist in the prevention and care of our covered group. United Healthcare and HealthStat provide risk staff with quarterly aggregate data reporting to assist with targeting employee health concerns and presenting solutions. Targeted guidance, reinforcing wellness and disease prevention assist the employee in managing their health condition. The on-site clinic recommends use of our United Healthcare premium providers and the prescription formulary to assist with cost savings to our health plan. Meet our HealthStat employee clinic staff. On the left is Linda Holt, ARNP, then Ann Taylor and Jessica Carter, our medical office assistants, and on the right is Susan Shirley, ARNP. The clinic staff that we have is very supportive of their patients' health, and they encourage favorable outcomes. Our health risk assessment program reduces costs to the health plan where individualized care, prevention, and the education has proven effective. A health risk assessment determines an individual's risk levels, and depending on the number of health concerns, an individual may need to follow up from 1 to 4 times a year, and they'll have their levels checked to determine if their condition is improving. As you can see here, 74% of the people who utilize the clinic, of the 1,900 eligible, have maintained or reduced their risk levels. And some of the risk level indicators that they look at are cholesterol, blood pressure, glucose, and BMI. Our on-site clinic has been instrumental in assisting us through the pandemic with symptom assessment to determine if someone should be tested for COVID-19. Their staff also follows up with the patient to make sure they're feeling well, and then again, if they're clear to return to work. The on-site clinic has delivered year over year a healthy ROI. That return on investment, for every dollar spent, we realize $4.58 in savings. Wellness education is key to patient awareness and disease prevention. Contributions from United Healthcare through our wellness funds make these initiatives possible. For example, we've just hired a registered dietitian nutritionist through a contract with HealthStat who will be giving us 10 telephonic hours a month with scheduling through the clinic staff. They'll address a multitude of conditions, and some of the ones noted above are within our top diagnosed concerns. In addition to our personal medical health, the on-site clinic also participates in our occupational health, and many minor injuries are treated and returned to work that same day or within 24 hours. Meet Karen Basilovich, who is our primary physical therapist. She's on the right in the picture. She and her staff attend to more than 1,000 patient visits each year and successfully return our employees to work, better able to perform the physical aspects of their job. Employees are referred directly from the on-site clinic to the physical therapist or through our third-party administrator for workers' compensation, Corval. And that concludes my presentation.
So are there any questions from the commission? Commissioner Selvage.
Thank you, Joyce. With COVID, from the risk management perspective, has the city faced increased exposure because of how we've handled COVID?
I think the city's done really well in the fact that we were able to manage a lot of remote workforce. The message that we presented to the employees and the supervisors was, if you're sick, stay home. Call your supervisor, let them know you're ill. We don't want you to bring that into work in case it is COVID, and then give them the opportunity to call their doctor or the clinic so that they can diagnose them and make a determination if they need to be tested.
But I know from your department, I've attended cities functions at Cleveland Heights and others where you've required a COVID waiver form to be filled out, absolving the city from...
I'm not familiar with that, no.
Okay. Somebody was.
Ah, that's interesting.
But you're satisfied from the risk management perspective, the city has done the right things in handling this crisis.
I am. I think that we've done very well with it. We've managed our employee population to not have too much time out because of it. It hasn't become epidemic within any specific department. It's been very closely monitored, and I think we've done a very good job with it.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you very much for that presentation, and stick around, we have one for you. All right. Next, we will move to our Beautification Awards, and we have Bill with us to be able to make that presentation on both a residential and commercial property.
Okay. The first up is the residential award, and it goes to Brian and Brandy Philpott, who live at 995 Lake Hollingsworth Drive. The house was recently re-landscaped, and every time you drive by it, everything is perfect. Perfect grass, perfect plants. And they did call in and say they were grateful for receiving the award, but they're not able to attend today, so I don't believe they're here. So
It's an interesting thing. You see the pots at the beginning of the driveway.
Uh-huh.
Those, if you've noticed, get changed out a lot in terms of different flowering things, and I wondered how they did that. And they're actually in 5-gallon buckets all the way around the inside of the pot, which is pretty smart.
Yeah, very efficient way to do that, I'm sure. The other thing is that they always change out the flowers along the driveway and everything, so it's a very great job they do over there. I've already put a sign in their yard, and I will make sure they get this award personally. So, okay, I guess we'll move to the second one here now. Oh, this is one of the great new additions to our downtown on Lake Mirror. This is Lake Mirror Holdings, the Aspire office building at 632 East Main Street. You can see the beautiful building facade here. It has, the first floor is actually an underground parking garage, which makes everything nice in case it rains or anything like that. Beautiful, spacious office buildings. They've actually made great use of ground cover plantings in their landscape, so there's no need to mow anything over there, and it just always looks nice over there. So it's really a beautiful view of Lake Mirror too, right? I believe someone here is here to receive that award.
Yes, he is. Mr. Beckett.
There we go.
And I can actually take the award to Philpott's tonight too, if you want.
Coincidence, yeah.
I'm very happy of it.
You might tell him about the garage doors and the use of that space for events.
You want to tell them?
No, you know, please.
Yeah, so one of them, that
By the
garage
mic.
is, I'll take this off. The garage is really designed so those two front doors can come up and for an event space. So it really worked out well that after we started this project, we were able to, get the Lakeland brewing site and turn that into the joinery. And so we're really happy with the way this all turned out. So
Looks beautiful.
thank you very much for the award. It's a great building.
Thank you.
Come visit.
We're going to take a picture up here.
Okay. Okay. Perfect, thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Anything else?
I do have one more thing to mention here. Our Spring Obsession event is coming up pretty soon here, actually on Saturday, March 13th, between 8 o'clock and 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Usually the event is held at the Munn Park, but this year they've moved it out to the Lake Crago Park. If you're not familiar with Lake Crago Park, it's actually, you go up Lakeland Hills Boulevard and you kind of turn in where the Hollis Cancer Center is. Instead of turning left into that parking lot, you go across this little bridge, and that's our beautiful new park out there. We're trying to keep that as a naturalistic park. It's got a brand new nature center there. It's a beautiful building, and I think they're going to have dozens of vendors the way it sounds. If you need more information on this, they have a website. Just punch in on Google or whatever, just punch in Spring Obsession 2021. A lot of information will come up, so you might want to be aware of that.
What time is that again?
8 o'clock in the morning. This is a Saturday, March 13th, 8 o'clock until 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
But the things by 3 are pretty much gone, aren't they?
I would think so. They always have some great vendors there, and it's, plants and also other gardening type items are offered for sale there. We're also going to have a booth there to show some of our new plants too. So hope to see you there. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you mentioning that. Next, I have a presentation to make. This is purchasing month, that being March, and so I'm going to ask Joyce Diaz, who was here earlier, Mark Rayford, to come up front for this presentation. You guys can choose who wants to hold the proclamation. Mr. Rayford participated in a purchasing session just last week, so we're grateful for that. in terms of just talking about the processes of how we do purchasing within the city, and he's a great leader in that regard. The public procurement profession plays a significant role in the efficiency and effectiveness of both government and businesses. Public procurement professionals of the City of Lakeland Purchasing and Stores Division and in other public and private organizations have tremendous influence on the economic conditions in the United States, with the cumulative purchasing power running into the billions of dollars. The City of Lakeland Purchasing and Stores Division and other professional purchasing associations throughout the world engage in special efforts during the month of March to inform the public about the importance of the role played by the procurement professions in the business, industry, and government. Would you like to make some comments?
Well, I just want to thank our purchasing and stores staff for their dedication over this past year. It's been an interesting challenge with the pandemic, bringing in more inventory and dealing with public meetings and that sort of thing. So they've done a wonderful job. I really want to send that big thank you out to them.
Thank you so much, Joyce. And on behalf of Joyce and I, as well as the remaining purchasing and store staff who's holding down the fort, we want to express our sincere and humble thanks to the mayor, the city commissioners, the city manager's office, the city attorney's office, our finance department, our city clerk records department, and all of city staff who help support our programs and processes and procedures. We're gratefully thankful.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, that brings us to the committee reports and related items. The Real Estate and Transportation Committee met, and Commissioner Reed is going to give that report and make a motion.
Thank you, Mayor. February 26, 2001, the Real Estate and Transportation Committee met via go-to meeting. The meeting was available to view by public online and local cable channels. Commissioner Bill Reed, Chair, Mayor Muntz, Commissioner Walker were present, along with Commissioner Madden, McCauley, and Salvage were also present along with staff. Commissioner Bill Reed called the meeting to order at 8:18 a.m. The first order of business, and the only order of business, as a matter of fact, was the Second Amendment of Lease Agreement with National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration. The Second Amendment for Lease Agreement with the United States Government, acting through a designated representative for NOAA, was for hangar and office space at the Airside Center at 3450 Flightline Drive in the Lakeland International Airport. February 2020, the government issued a request for lease proposals, seeking additional space for accommodate expansion of NOAA's operation, which included availability for 50 to 75 additional employees and 2 aircraft, a G550. I have no idea what that is, by the way. Must be a pretty big airplane. And then a King Air. The City Commission approved the lease agreement in April 2020 with consolidation of NOAA's lease with additional space and its estimated investment for expanded lease, with existing lease already being occupied. The second lease amendment modified the existing lease agreement to reflect the final cost, lease commencement dates, and rent payments. The lease will have a retroactive commencement date of February 1, 2021, and will continue for a term of 20 years with a firm 15-year initial term. The rent collected from NOAA comprised of several components, which include building shell, tenant improvement rent, operational cost reimbursement, and building specific amortized capital. For year 1 through 15, for shell rent, the price will be $1,520,723.16 per year. The operational cost, $298,146.42. Tenant improvement rent, $824,975.88. and building amortization capital costs of $1,764.18, with a total annual rent for year 1 through 5 of $2,645,609.64. Staff recommends that City Commission approve the Second Amendment to the lease with the government acting as through its designated representative, NOAA, and authorize the appropriate city officials to finalize and execute an amended and all the amendment lease and all corresponding documents consisting within the above specified terms. Ramona Sirianni presented the items to the committee. Mayor Bill Munch moved to approve the lease amendment. Commissioner Walker seconded. The motion carried unanimously. The committee adjourned at 8:24 a.m. that same day, and we moved to approve, sir.
So moved.
And a second from Commissioner Walker. All right. Discussion by commissioners? Any discussion by the audience? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same. Unanimously passes. That brings us to the approval of the consent agenda, which includes one item that is not asterisked that we talked about, which is item 5E. That was a recommendation, I think, by Commissioner Selvage on life extensions to add that to the consent agenda. So it would include E and then any other asterisked item.
Second.
Motion approved and a second by Commissioner McCarley. Discussion by commissioners. Any discussion by the audience? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same. Unanimously passes. That brings us then to the request to appear from the general public, and Doris Moore Bailey is here regarding the June 13th observance. Doris Moore, if you'd like to come to the podium. Right here in the center. Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Mayor Montz, commissioners, city staff, audience, and my husband. And to the female commissioners and the women in the audience, happy Women's History Month, and those who are listening. I am Doris Moore Bailey from Lakeland, Polk County, Florida. I'm originally from the north. That's Northwest Lakeland, the Black Bottom. And I still live in the north, a little bit further north, but I remain here in Lakeland in the north. I stand before you today because I have, serious concerns. Should I take this off? Can you hear me?
You can if you'd like.
Gosh.
And it's much easier to speak.
Oh gosh, yes, it's like a challenge. But I stand before you today because I have serious concerns as to why the city would want us to invalidate history that has been a part of all of us, whether you are a person of Euro descent or if you're a person of African descent. Our history is an inclusive history. And although we just celebrated February, African American Emphasis Month is what I call it, AKA Black History Month. February the 2nd, the city passed a resolution to basically disavow Juneteenth and embrace May 20th. If some of you can recall who have attended the Juneteenth celebration that we have been having here in the city of Lakeland since 1992. And of course, that was when the legislation was passed by the late Governor Lawton Childs, and that legislation was sponsored by Dr. Alzo J. Reddick out of Orlando. And I'm sure both of those men were aware of the May 20th date. However, the purpose of Juneteenth, as I stated, the many times that I have come here and stood there to receive the proclamation, is that none are free until all are free. And so because Texas and Missouri before Texas was the last state where all of the enslaved found out that they were free, Thus, we celebrate collectively Juneteenth throughout the United States. In 1968, there was a march on Washington, in Washington, not on Washington like November 6th, but a march where African American men and women were challenged to return home and do something in your community. So that was the resurgence of Juneteenth, and people have begun to celebrate Juneteenth more and more today. It is a recognized date and time, and it's a time for us to come together and heal. What happened on February the 2nd does not help with that healing process. Actually, it brings us back to this dark place in our lives that none of us want to go. These are this woman in the middle here is my great-great-grandmother, and to hear some of the stories where ears were cut off and things were done to people of African descent, and mind you, their father, you can read my book, their father was an Irishman, but of course, their mother wasn't. And so there's a large family of us, and I'm very appreciative of that, and I serve as a historian for my family. Why are we here? Why are we at this point? Why are we here today, Commissioner Walker? I mean, what was the purpose of your initiative? And I'll start off by saying this. If you're going to start dividing us up like that, then let me give you some history about Florida. So, and I'll start here with Lakeland, because if we're going to start celebrating this way, then we look at in 1882 when Mr. Mon purchased 88 acres here in Lakeland, and then in 84 he planted the property. 85 Lakeland was established, 1885 that is. Then moving to the state itself, which was a territory in 1821, right? And was not or did not receive its statehood until March 3rd, 1845. And that's when Mr. Lafayette was given some property in Tallahassee. And at that time, to the west, Pensacola was the capital. And to the east was St. Augustine, where, you know, everybody's heard about Kinsley, where the slaves were enslaved there, forced slavery. And so, moving forward, after 1821, then we moved to 1845, but then in 1861, January 10th, the state of Florida decided to secede from the Union. It was not a part of the original 13 anyway, but they succeeded because they didn't want to give up power, money, and their slaves. When they returned to the Union in it was June the 25th, 1868, as a slave state, Confederate state, still people were enslaved. And so then we move into this current situation that I'm here to address today, where now you say to me and others who celebrate the significance of our ancestors that no, you don't celebrate that here in the state of Florida. 1776, and I just cited some days to you, quotes years. 1776, this city was not established. 1776, the state of Florida was not established. But what do we celebrate every 4th of July? We celebrate one day. That brings us all together. Even though my ancestors were not even free then, they were out working at that time. And then we have the understanding that sometimes and oftentimes our history becomes romanticized. You hear about General McCook came and he stood at the Knox building and all of that. Well, there's a Frederick Douglass reenactor. Commissioner Savage, it's good to see you again. But in 1997, when we had Professor Ogletree of Harvard University speaking at Juneteenth at New Bethel, you were there. You stayed the whole time, participating and all. Thank you for that. But during that time, Frederick Douglass reenactor came to Lakeland. His mother is 90 years old, and she's a librarian, retired, of course, by now. But she probably knows more history than, forgotten more history than some of us know. But what he tells me is that history is oftentimes romanticized. How's my time? Okay. So he tells us that history is oftentimes romanticized. And of course, we also know that Napoleon Bonaparte said history is a lie agreed upon. So what he said about Tallahassee and Mike Cook, General Mike Cook respectfully, is that some people were together in a house, and then someone said the slaves or enslaves, because they were never slaves, they were enslaved, they were now free. So that's the history that he gives, that's his account. And he goes around all the time talking to groups about that account. And so he shared that with me on Friday as I was doing my research for today. And so I would like to say to the mayor and each of you to consider what you're doing, taking actions. Commissioner Walker, I know this is a political year for you. You're running for state office and all of that. And I know there's a personal thing with me that you have, because I've come before this commission. None of you were here. And I think Commissioner Savage may have been. But I've come before this commission seeking requests for help for Juneteenth. Each time the charge was led by Commissioner Philip Walker, he blocked several times. The last time I came to request support to have a horse parade, because at that time I was sponsoring rodeos, and Commissioner Walker said, well, no, where's your budget? And so I had come previously, that was never asked of me. I was told to come back again a second time, which I did, and made a presentation. And so I just take real serious issues with that. And I don't think any of you have walked in these women places or any of my other ancestors. And each of us in our lives, we all have different paths, and our families have different paths and direction. And not to say that there hasn't been enslavement or maybe servitude involuntarily. But I want to say, and I want to leave with this quote for today, and I would ask that you consider, Mayor and Commissioners, that you would consider your actions, and if not, then do consider not being divisive. This is divisive. And I'm sure that some of you received my email, and I'm sure you received many emails from people around. But I just want to have you consider the thing that is important in my thinking, is that help us to get out of this deep place. Let's delete this. If you want to celebrate May 20th, I don't think that's problematic. What is problematic is saying, hey, no more Juneteenth in the state of Florida. And we're going to put out that we want the schools and everybody else to celebrate May 20th. We're not saying, I've never said that we should disavow May 20th. What I said is that Juneteenth, because all are free, or none are free until all are free. And that's my point. I have, since my days starting this process, my father was alive at that time. He's not gone. Ruby Taylor was involved. She's not gone. Many others who were involved with Juneteenth, they're not passed on. And so in their honor, we continue on because they put in their monies. My husband and I and my family, we put in our own personal monies because we don't get it from the city. But I must say, given recognition to Bill Tinsley, when he was with Parks and Recreation, he did permit us to use the Coleman Bush building pro gratis. So at any rate, but my point here is, in closing, is that I hope that we and you and all of us can collectively look at this and see how we can come together. I think that's your heart. I believe that's who you are. And so I don't know each of you, Sarah, I've seen you around, and of course, I've interviewed Mr. Reed, and I've seen this young lady many years, she's been here. But at any rate, I just hope that we can seriously consider what we're doing here. I know relationships help make some things happen. I understand that, I get that. But consider the actions before that, and regardless of the relationship. So whoever controls the past controls the future. Whoever controls the present controls the past. And that's George Orwell. I'm sure many of you have heard that before. And in closing, some people see things that they are, say why, others see things that never were and say why not. Please consider what you're doing, what you've done, and make Juneteenth, make a resolution for Juneteenth. And establish a Juneteenth commission. Let's work together. I don't care who's on it. If we could all work together and get this resolved, never to return here again. It's a deep past. None of us want to return to that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mrs. Bailey. Appreciate it very much. All right, the next presentation will be from Paige Conister regarding amending Section 612 of the City Code relating to the public consumption of alcoholic beverages. And team. The crew is here. Okay.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for having us.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
My name is Stephanie Lewis. These are my two business partners, Paige Knatzer and Leslie Rayson. We are Swan Pedal Co. We are excited to introduce a new amenity to Lakeland that will create a vibrant, fun, mobile space to foster community and reimagine the downtown Lakeland and Dixieland experience. Our business need is for the amending of the City of Lakeland Ordinance, Section 612B3, allowing patrons on the Swan Pedal Co. bike to consume beer, wine, or seltzers. This ordinance provision would only be provided while the patrons are seated on the bike and never walking to or from any business with an open container. Thank you for your consideration.
All right, so questions or comments? Commissioner Reed.
Is Teresa here?
Teresa Mayo?
Okay, Nicole's here. Okay.
Nicole's here.
What kind of change would this be making, Nicole, please?
I'm sorry?
What kind of change would this be making?
Well, this is a ordinance change, not to the land development code. So if you we'll have to work through the legal part of it with the city attorney's office and make sure that we understand enforcement. Because of right now, no alcohol consumption is allowed on public roads or streets. So we would have to work through this. I don't know if we can legally exclude streets and just to the vehicle. I'm not sure. This is something we would have to research. So I would ask that if you want us to consider that, direct us to work with the city attorney to work through the legal ramifications. So it's to the land. It's not to the land development code. This is city ordinance.
Yeah, Commissioner, if I may, real quick, for the Community Development Department, as far as the relationship there, it would only be for matters of like the business tax receipt and how that would function. Beyond that, it would rely on the city attorney.
Thank you.
Commissioner McLeod.
Well, I was thinking this is probably a bigger request than we're prepared to consider and weigh in on today, but I would like to hear more and what the ramifications or options would be. Are you all currently operating in downtown? Do you have?
No,
okay.
we're not.
What is the plan for being in operation?
So we cannot move forward without this ordinance.
Okay.
Our plan for operation looks much like the other pedal companies that already exist in the Southeast. There are 23 of them, 10 of them are in Florida. St. Pete already has an ordinance in place that is very specific. They also do not have an open container law that permits alcohol beverages to be on the streets. Their ordinance is specific to the bike.
Okay.
So we haven't invested tons of money yet, because without the ordinance, we can't really operate.
Once we get the okay.
Commissioner Walker.
Hearing what, thank you, Mr. Mayor, hearing what, from what's coming from them, and then for what Ms. Nicole Travis is sharing with us, Mr. Palmer Davis, where would this sit? Is it something that we can entertain through legal? Because we've already know what our code says, but to incorporate a particular ordinance of such, and I think I heard Commissioner McLeod say something that we need to have further discussion on to make sure it fits in with what the legal ramifications would be.
Right. It would be an ordinance amendment to the city code to allow public consumption under, certain parameters, on the right of way. We would definitely want to get with LPD and some other departments of the city to try to understand what all the issues might be before we brought something forward to you, if that is your interest.
It would require certainly specific routes. It would require specific times and all those kinds of things, and that's part of what you would do.
Yeah, and we're prepared to present that. We were just under the understanding today that this is what we're asking for. But we are prepared to fully pitch our plan from the actual bike to our routes that include downtown Friday and Saturday nights, and then also a coffee crawl in Dixieland and downtown on Saturday mornings.
Commissioner Reeves.
Is this kind of like a rickshaw, something like that, or is it you'll be riding a bike? I'm not quite sure. I do want to ask our police chief in the back too, what kind of ramifications this may have for him, but is this, I'm trying to think of how I can drink and drive a bike at the same time.
It's a 16-seater bike, and it's human-powered, so it's a 16-seater bike. So if you can imagine a dining room table, the bike seats are around that dining room table, and everybody participates in pedaling, and then you have a driver that steers the bike.
Savannah.
Nashville.
Yes.
Charleston. Commissioner Selvage.
Ladies, I congratulate you on your entrepreneurship here. We tend to move rather slowly up here. Your business plan, is it important that you get an answer one way or another in the next 30 days, 60 days, or is it time sensitive?
So we think our plan was to, at the next commission, if this was something that you would entertain, present our business plan to you and the impacts that we have already assumed for downtown Lakeland financially and the value that this would add to downtown Lakeland. And then our hope is that you would partner with us and say, yes, we can see your vision, and then get a vote. So our time frame from this day looks like 6 weeks to us.
For when?
6 weeks. So in the next 2 commission meetings.
As we're required to have first and second hearings, the debate and all that, so.
Sure.
But 6 weeks, I'd think that would be enough time, Mayor, for us to consider it.
Mr. Mayor,
Sure, Commissioner Walker.
I would suggest then if something, not knowing the business plan, have not seen the business plan, you don't know the legal ramifications behind it, I too would suggest maybe getting with our city attorney to see how it can move forward, if moving forward with approval. And we know it's going to take time to get that done, so I would suggest moving that way.
And if he can work on that as an ordinance change, then they can make the presentation does
Sure.
at the same time.
Sure.
Commissioner McCarley.
And I think it'd be important for you to share with our city attorney those cities that you mentioned, especially in Florida, the verbiage from their ordinances, because that would probably be a little more helpful from a best practice standpoint.
Sure. Yes, we've definitely done our research. This is something that's been in the works for about a year now. We definitely didn't want to come forward without being ready and prepared for those things. So we have all of that in our briefcase. We're just ready to bring it out.
When you're ready, we're ready.
Any other questions? Thank you very much for your presentation, and we'll work on that alongside you. Thank you. All right, that brings us to our end of meeting as a commission. We move into an equalization board, and so we'll hear the equalization hearings from lots cleaning and clearing. City Attorney Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the portion of the City Commission's agenda where if you have received a notice from the city that the city or the city's contractors have either mowed your property or cleaned debris from your property and are intending to charge you for those costs, this is your time to address the City Commission and ask any questions that you might have or express an objection. We usually are scrolling the roll by now, but
see a scroller.
I don't know if Kevin.
Is there anyone here who is part of this mailing or notice on equalization board? Has anyone been notified about a violation? Would you like to speak, sir, about that at the podium? Just state your name, please. and then the address that it references to, if you don't mind.
Hello, how everybody doing? I'm Vince McElroy. I'm here in reference to the property. It's a lot on 2042 West Hickory Street over in Lakeland.
It's on the second page.
Second page.
What page?
Second
Second
page,
page.
second from the bottom.
Okay.
Okay. Really not sure. I received this letter right here saying that it was some fees that was owed that I guess did some yard debris. That part I'm really not sure about because I purchased this property along with a few other properties on the side. I mean, I'm a truck driver. And anytime at any of my property that I get any type of notice that there's potential violations, there's one actually in question now I'm working on that's here that, you know, with some illegal dumping with bolts and tires and everything. I always attend to it. This one right here, I'm not even sure why I'm here because this particular property I had here probably about 3 years. It's a vacant lot, and we pretty, I mean, I don't live here in Polk County, so the paper here or whatever may be dumped. If I'm not notified, I don't know about it. But anyhow, I guess it's in reference to some grass being cut, in which we did have the grass cut, and I don't even understand why that this small amount here is being assessed to it. So
Mr. Daney's over there on the side who will respond to that.
Jim Daney with Code Enforcement. I can either bring it up for you and show you it, or we can remove it from the roll and I can discuss it with the owner. We can either bring it back to you or take care of it administratively.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I'm gonna make a motion that we remove it from the roll. He speak with Mr. Daney and get the situation cleared up that he may not understand, and if we bring it back, it will be back next time around.
Yes, sir. If need be, we'll bring it back
That'd
to
be my
you
motion.
next month.
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any discussion by the audience otherwise? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same. So we remove that item of 2042 West Hickory Street from this listing. Thank you, sir, and you can meet with Mr. Daney outside. He'll be happy to review that with you.
all right, thank you.
Save you a trip, second trip.
Mr. Mayor, I offer motion that all the rest of the items in the list to be approved.
And a second?
Second.
And a second on that from Commissioner McCarley. Discussion by commissioners? Any discussion by the audience? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same. Unanimously passes. That ends our equalization hearing, and we re-begin as a commission, and that brings us to public hearings. Ordinance 3A1.
We have one ordinance for a public hearing this afternoon. That is proposed ordinance number 21-08, an ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Lakeland, Florida, relating to retiree health care expenses, making findings, amending and restating the City of Lakeland Health Reimbursement Arrangement Plan, providing for severability, providing an effective date.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion approved in a second. Discussion by commissioners. Any discussion by the audience? This is a roll call vote, so Commissioner Walker?
Aye.
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 Yes.
Aye.
Aye. Unanimously passes.
The next item is an annual report that the City of Lakeland is required to give in a public hearing setting in order to retain its certification from state comp plan amendment review. So Teresa Mayo with the Community Development Department will be giving you a brief presentation.
Thank you, Teresa.
Good afternoon. As City Attorney Davis stated, this is an annual report that's required by an agreement that the city has with the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity to maintain its certification under its Comprehensive Planning Certification Program. That program allows the city certain benefits, including an expedited review process for certain land use map amendments. And in accordance with that agreement, we have to report to the Department of Economic Opportunity by the 15th of March of each year summarizing for them what actions the city has taken in terms of land use, map amendments, annexations, and then also describing how we've met certain measurements that are outlined in that agreement. So as was discussed at the agenda study on Friday, there was one large annexation that took place last year that was 79.6 acres for the Orlando Health Project located south of the Parkway. There were several other map amendments that were approved, what we consider small-scale map amendments, meaning 10 acres or less. But those were for relatively significant projects, the Lake Wire development being one of those, Barren Boxes, which is a new self-storage facility down by the Sam's Club off of Lakeland Highlands, and then some residential development within the Bridgewater community. Then there was also an annexation that took, future land use map amendment that took place for the Lakeland Veterans Administration Clinic, also located down in the Lakeland Highlands area. As far as the measurements, we continue to maintain the acceptable levels as established by the DEO. And with the annexation, this does change the city's certification area because that area that was annexed now becomes part of that certified area. So there's an item later on in the agenda to amend the agreement with DEO to recognize that annexation that took place. So with that, I'll stand for any questions you may have about the report.
Commissioner McLeod.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Teresa. Do we ever get feedback from Department of Economic Opportunity, or is it kind of standard they approve it and send
It's
it back?
pretty standard that, once you have your public hearing, if there are any comments that are made on the report, that we would note those in the report and send it up to them. Since I've been here, I don't recall them ever coming back with anything in terms of comments or concerns.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner Walker.
Not a question, Mr. Mayor, but as we indicated on Friday, and thank you, Ms. Mayo, for the presentation, along with Ms. Pat Sneed, who was with us on this past Friday. I think it's always good to know and let the public know how well our city has done, because we're one of the few cities in the state that have this kind of certification where we do not have to go to the Department of Economic Opportunity on the state level to get things approved, because everything's already sitting out plan. And that's a good thing to know, because of the kind of things that we've done here and planned properly for our city to be where it is. So it's commendable that we have this particular certification and have had it. I think this will be the 33rd time around. So, I mean, if we go 3 times around, it's 30 years. As we come into it, we'll have this particular certification for Lakeland. And again, as Commissioner McLeod just asked about, the Department of Economic Opportunity, the state level, recognize certain ones, and we're just one of those ones, and we're only a few of the ones throughout the 412 municipalities in our state. So I think it's something to be commended for.
Yes.
Any other comments from commissioners? Any comments from the audience? This is a voice vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Unanimously passes. Thank you very much.
Did we need a motion?
I thought we had
I
one.
think we did.
No.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Oh, thank you. My bad. I apologize. I'm racing.
Just seeing if you're awake.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem, you got our back.
Thank you. Appreciate that. It's how you protect each other. We have no report from the Community Redevelopment Agency. And I am going, because of the large number of people in the audience, suggest that we move one item up in front of the city manager reports, which is the item 6C2, the memo for the 9th Amendment to lease and transfer agreement between the City of Lakeland and the Lakeland Regional Medical Center, since that would help expedite that group, if that's all right. By the way, Commissioner Madden is having to do a little bit of double duty, and so she has come in for this as well. And she has a mandatory certification she's also attending. Okay. Who would like to begin?
I will introduce it.
All right, please.
All right, this is a 9th Amendment to the lease and transfer agreement between the City of Lakeland and Lakeland Regional Medical Center. And what this 9th Amendment does is one, provide for the prepayment to the city of the total sum of $215 million on or before October 1st, 2021, in full satisfaction of all rent and other payments that would be due under the the city's current lease with LRMC for fiscal years 2021-22 through 2039-2040. The other thing that this accomplishes would be to extend that lease beyond fiscal year 2039-2040 in perpetuity for $10 per year. And I'm just going to give you some brief legal background on this and then turn it over to the city manager to discuss some of the budgetary and financial implications of this Ninth Amendment. The existing lease with LRMC is scheduled to expire on September 30th of 2040, and the lease, as currently written, provides three basic options to the parties upon the expiration of the lease at that time. The first option is that the parties will first begin good faith lease negotiations on October 1st of 2036 for a 25-year extension of the lease. And the lease specifies that any rent and other payments under a lease extension at that time shall be consistent with payments then being made by other acute care not-for-profit hospitals in Florida, which lease their facilities from governmental entities such as counties, municipalities, and hospital districts. So that's your first option under the current lease. The second option would be for the city to sell the hospital to LRMC, and the lease provides that the purchase price for the hospital would be determined by a nationally recognized healthcare appraisal firm that would be agreed to by the city and LRMC, and further provides that LRMC would be entitled to a credit against the purchase price in the aggregate amount of all rent and other payments made to the city by LRMC from the inception of the lease, which was October 1st of 1986 through September 30th of 2040. So that is your second option, would be a sell of the hospital to LRMC. The third basic option would be an option that does not involve LRMC. And that would be either to sell or lease the hospital to a third party, or the city to simply take over operations of the hospital itself in 2040. One thing that complicates all these options is that the state law currently provides that upon the sale or lease of a municipal hospital, 50% of the proceeds of that sale or lease must be dedicated to healthcare economic development purposes, and the other 50% has to be dedicated to the provision of indigent care within the community. That is, if you sell or lease the hospital to a third party, that statute contains an exemption for existing leases, such as the one we have with LRMC currently. So it provides that if there's an existing lease with a hospital, or if that lease is modified or extended, that lease and the proceeds from that lease would not be subject to those restrictions on the use of those funds. So that is a brief background on the legal situation that all this is taking place within, and I'll turn it over to the city manager to talk about the financial and budgetary issues, unless there are any questions at this point.
Thank you, Palmer. Commissioners, we've had a chance to meet one-on-one individually to discuss some of the budgetary and financial implications that would go along with this potential prepayment, so you're all very aware of them. I had an opportunity to present them again at the agenda study on Friday, but mainly for purposes of the public record, I would like to discuss those once again. Given the favorable interest rates prevailing in the current economic climate, the city and the hospital have been engaged in discussions over the last several months of the possible full prepayment under the lease and transfer agreement that would both relieve the hospital of ongoing payments under the lease and provide the city with certainty in the face of the above contractual and statutory restrictions that Palmer has discussed with you. Both myself and our finance director, Mike Brossart, have performed an extensive analysis of the city's public improvement fund and have concluded that with some risk assumptions that we've discussed, which would be assuming a 6% rate of return on the hospital's full prepayment, and very importantly, with no drawdowns of the principal by this commission or even a future commission. And there was some discussion with Palmer, the city attorney, on Friday about any options that would somehow bind a future commission, and Palmer's response was that that would be very difficult, if not impossible, to do. So it's important to note that, again, what has been calculated contemplates no drawdowns of the principal amount. Also, growth in the public improvement fund cost of no greater than 1.75 per year could be experienced subsequent to fiscal year 2030. A prepayment in the amount that has been presented of $215 million would enable the city to continue to fund projected capital maintenance and repair needs within the public improvement fund for the foreseeable future, with some programmed capital expenditures being significantly reduced or removed to balance with this prepayment amount. I gave some examples of that on Friday. In the current capital improvement plan within the public improvement fund, there was scheduled some funding for a fire station north of I-4. In order to make this deal work, we would need to significantly reduce that amount, and we have been able to leave in the funding some funding for land acquisition. But as an example, design and construction of that fire department location would have to be removed and was previously programmed in. Another example would be where we had programmed in the future some funding for park space in the southwest portion of the community that we all know is a need, where we had funding programmed in. Again, we would have to remove that along with some adjustments to other funding that had been programmed in to the PIF, or the Public Improvement Fund. Additionally, should the assumptions that I've discussed not be met and absent other mitigating options at that time, a shortfall in the transfer from the Public Improvement Fund to the general fund could occur, which of course would then result in reduced general fund revenue. The hospital has agreed to the prepayment in the amount discussed in full satisfaction of all payments otherwise due and owing under the lease agreement for the time period beginning in fiscal year 2022 and continuing through fiscal year 2040. Under the attached 9th Amendment, the hospital will make payment to the city in that amount on or before October 1st, 2021. So I will at this time yield back to Palmer, but just again wanted to highlight those assumptions and the way that we've calculated and derived at the $215 million that has been negotiated with the hospital.
And I think that explains this deal, and so we'll stand for any questions you might have.
First, is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
A motion to approve and a second by Commissioner McCarley. All right, discussion by commissioners or questions. Commissioner Selvage.
Mr. Davis, I seem to recall that I was told at some point that if we had this deal put in front of us right now, as it was originally, that the state would prohibit us from entering into an agreement with a not-for-profit hospital like this?
The statute's very clear that an existing lease, and this lease goes back to 1986, is exempt from any kind of restrictions.
It would be what? Would be
exempt from any kind of restrictions imposed by state law on the use of the sale proceeds. So I don't know if that answers your question or not, but I mean, we are legally authorized to have a lease with a not-for-profit corporation. The statute doesn't make a distinction between a for-profit or not-for-profit corporation, and once again exempts the lease proceeds from an existing lease of a hospital.
I don't think that was your question.
No, I said, so could we charge $14 million a year if we had a new hospital in town was a not-for-profit, the same deal that we're in now? Can we do that now under state law?
No, I mean, the state law now, it only applies to existing leases, yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
That's option 3 that you mentioned.
Right.
Yes, option 3.
So, and are we the only city in Florida that has an arrangement like this?
I don't know if we're the only city, but I think this is a rare situation.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner McLeod.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Brossart, you had talked Friday about the recommendation of having an outside group to manage the principal. Any more thoughts on that? Or I think that might be a good clarification just to provide for this discussion as well. Because I thought that was a good point. And
good afternoon, Mike Brossart, Finance Director. We're going to treat these funds like we would any other permanent fund, like a pension fund. And for that reason, we recommend that the city manager assigned a group of, say, 5 people, similar to what we have in the investment management group inside the current general employees pension fund to assist in managing that, creating the investment policy, probably something very similar to what we have in the pension plans now, as well as the selection. We're going to do an RFP. We recommend doing an RFP to manage the monies currently there. The Public Improvement Endowment Fund is managed right now by Allen and Company. They do a fantastic job, but I think with a windfall like this, I think we need to go back out and do an RFP and make sure that we're getting the best rates possible to manage those. Does that answer the question?
Thank you.
All right.
Commissioner Reed.
Mike, I have a brief question of you. Who decided whether to put this money in the CIP fund or general fund when the original lease was done?
Talking to Gene Strickland, that was before me. That was something he recommended. It was about, I think originally it was about $1.5 million, most of which was going towards parks. And I say that only because he called and he and I chatted about it just recently again.
Okay. I have some other questions. Bill, I have a question of you.
Sure.
You've had the benefit of being on the board of the hospital. What's the significance of the hurry today? You know, our citizens haven't heard about this a whole lot. Why do we need to do this today or next month or next month?
Well, this isn't precipitous. This has been a long discussion. You know, we've talked about capping the lease in earlier commissions 5 years ago or so, and we did a lease cap recently, and it's because the design of the lease or the design of the original formula didn't ever anticipate the kinds of revenues that would create this kind of an outcome. And I think from the hospital standpoint, so the way I would balance this is, from the city standpoint, I look at the fact that our public improvement fund makes this happen. That's a quality of life picture for us to have those capital improvement projects in place over a period of time. From the hospital standpoint, it's an onerous, a Moody rating annually in terms of why in the world would you be subject to this kind of a lease at this kind of a rate as a not-for-profit hospital. One of the number one complaints they have in evaluations against ratings against the hospital. That allows them to be able to satisfy that chronic need. And it isn't that it has to be done urgently. We're talking about this becoming effective October 1st. So it's really planning it into the budget year. It's planning it into their year as well. But it's been something that there's been discussion on in terms of trying to resolve a number, certainly since September of last summer, in terms of trying to get to whether or not this could take place.
Thank you. And I've got, again, I've thought about this long and hard, and of course this is probably one of the major decisions we're going to make for the city in my lifetime, and I'm sure part of all of ours. And I've tried to reflect a little bit on the assumptions that we've made, and you know, in April we had the coronavirus come up in 2000, and we've experienced like 35 million people unemployed, and we're 17% now. We're around 6. We've got around 12 million unemployment. We've got about 12 million unemployed now. We've got like $3.2 million, 3.2 million homeowners are in 90 days or less, and their mortgage payments are being foreclosed on. We have 650,000 homeowners that are in forbearance. That's just a given. They just pushed it back. We got all these ad valorem and taxes and stuff to be coming due in April, and most of them are behind on those as well. And I have a hard time grasping. I listen to, maybe I'm boring, I guess, because I listen to Harry Dent at the Stanberry Report, Peter Schiff, and Tom Gardner, all those guys, and they're all talking about we're going to have a 70-80% market crash before the end of the year. I know Warren Buffett's liquidating his bank stocks and buying gold. And we've got the massive unemployment. So I'm concerned about if we're going to make 6.5% return and what's going to be the long-term objective of our funds. And so that's one of the bigger things. And then obviously from a standpoint, I'd like to know what our hospital's worth. Mike or Jeff, do you have any perspective idea what our hospital is valued at today? Oh,
Don't all jump up there.
come
You
forward.
you
and
have to
take
do it
the
at the
mask
mic.
off, if you don't mind.
I'm sorry, Jeff Stearns, the city treasurer. So I'm sorry, the question is, what is the hospital worth?
Have we had, we've never had an appraisal on our hospital done per se.
I don't know that we've had an appraisal. In the financial statements that the hospital does, they do a net asset value calculation, which is all the cash on hand, the facilities, net of all liabilities. What is it worth? That number, I think, at the end of December was $929 million. What it would be worth on the open market, I have no idea, probably more than that, but we have never had an appraisal done and we don't know. And I don't know if somebody from the hospital wants to comment on that.
Do we get semi-annually, annual, quarter reports from them?
They do audited financials every year, and I know they post quarterly financials regularly as well.
Could you tell me what their earnings were in 2018?
I'm sorry, say again?
2018?
What about
their earnings?
Their earnings? I don't know 2018. I think in 2019, I think they reported earnings of on the order of $28 or $29 million net after depreciation, lease payments, et cetera.
And in 20?
It was like about 29 million-ish.
Was appreciation just a plus, so it's probably, do you have any idea what the appreciation is?
It's in the $60 million range. Again, there's folks from the hospital who are probably more familiar with their financial statements, but it's in the $60 to $65 million range.
Do you know what their liquid assets are?
What their assets are?
Liquid assets?
Well, their net assets at the end of December were $929 million. That includes all the assets less all the liabilities, including the debt.
That's total just for that year?
That's as of the end of the year.
Okay.
Or as of the December 31st.
So I thought they had a lot more money in liquid assets.
In liquid assets, I think they reported $635 million of cash equivalents, and money that they could get to in less than a year.
Okay. I look at this as part of one of our enterprise funds myself, and maybe I'm wrong, but we do the wastewater. What kind of return do we get on our wastewater?
When you say return, what is the dividend?
Yeah.
I think it's a little under $10 million, and that represents 12 or 13% of their operating revenues.
What about water, electric? About $30 billion, so that's about...
Lakeland Electric is about $31 million for last fiscal year in terms of the dividend, and that represents 10 to 11% of their operating revenues.
And then water's about the same?
Water's about 10 to 11% of their operating revenues.
The hospital is what?
Well, the hospital payment is $14.4 million roughly, and that represents a little less than 2% of their operating revenues.
Okay, thank you. They're good. We've got, of course, your excuse, thank you, unless somebody else has a question.
I'm sorry, excuse me?
I thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Really?
We've got Orlando Health and Advent coming in. And of course, they're going to take away some of our lower income paying clients, I guess you should say. So that would help on the mitigation fund. If something you don't think they're going to take away, they're for nonprofits also.
I'll talk about it in a minute.
Okay. But there again, they're also going to take away some of our profit-paying people as well. So, there's a balance there we have to address, and that's the big factor is what's going to happen in the future. And I would like for maybe Danielle to tell us what's going to happen. I think the administration that we have in place today, we're going to have universal federal health insurance. If Obamacare comes into play, how is that going to affect Lakeland Regional Hospital?
Good afternoon. Danielle Drummond, President and CEO at Lakeland Regional Health.
I would just start by saying, we certainly appreciate the opportunity to work with the city on this proposed lease amendment. I think from our perspective, we're clearly in uncertain times. I think uncertain times overall, and certainly in the healthcare environment. Over the years, we've seen changes in regulation that, again, will open up the opportunity for more competition in the market. And I think we should make no mistake that new competition that's coming into this market is going to be targeting, those service lines and that patient population that will be able to generate the largest return on that investment that a new entrant in the market will have. We've also seen over time just a continued erosion in reimbursement from a governmental perspective. So I think those are things that we should keep in mind, because I think our objective here is to bring as much certainty as possible, both for the hospital as well as the city, given the number of uncertainties that we have. With the future of payment reform, it's really hard to say. I mean, we've lived through various administrations, and I just think the current payment model is certainly what we're anticipating will be continuing in one way, shape, or form. However, it certainly is of concern to us, given how our payer mix is structured today, and what that could mean in the long run for us from an overall reimbursement perspective.
That was obviously concerned, again, what's going to happen if there is free health care for everybody. And we just want to make sure you're viable. And again, if that was one of my questions.
Sure. And I think, one of the things, at Lakeland Regional Health that I would just say is, obviously we're very committed to providing the highest quality healthcare services for everyone in this community, regardless of their ability to pay, and also regardless of the bottom line of that particular service line. So things like behavioral health and trauma and some of the advanced services we provide for heart attack, stroke, et cetera, do have a high cost to go along with that. However, when you look at our organization in total, we also pride ourselves on being efficient. So we do try to make sure that, we're running things as efficiently as possible, recognizing that there are these uncertainties that are out there. But I think our ability, I'll kind of address the timing issue right now too, our ability to be able to go out in this current market environment and obtain these funds to be able to make this prepayment is also a significant consideration as it relates to the timeline on this.
Thank you. And I don't believe that Orlando Health and Advent would have a level 2 trauma center either, would they?
That they would have
They wouldn't have a level 2 trauma center, would they?
I can't speak to their plans, but again, it would, we would need to look at what they were planning to bring to market, but I wouldn't assume that would be one of the first things that they would do here. I think that the trauma work will largely be left to us for the foreseeable future.
Commissioner McCarley.
Thank you, Danielle. And just for background information, and just to sort of reiterate for the public, so the rent that Lakeland Regional has done over the years, I think when it was initiated by the commission in the 80s, it never intended to be, as the mayor said earlier, to be $14, $15, $16, $18 million a year on the back of our healthcare provider. I think that is something that although a good deal at the time, for the city to get out of the business of healthcare was really smart. I don't think as commissioners we want to sit as a board of directors for the healthcare entity for our community. So I understand completely why they did it. But again, I don't think with the accelerator did they ever deem that healthcare would skyrocket, and that is something that's really unknown. What I think is really important to consider is when we were talking about Orlando Regional Health and Advent, and we're talking about the certificate of need that the state legislature took away last session, or the session before, because COVID hijacked us, that opened up a free market. And where free markets are good in a lot of ways, what we have to consider is Lakeland Regional Health is the indigent healthcare provider for our community at large, which is 2,200 square miles for the county of Polk County, as well as into Plant City, Hillsborough, and even Northeast Polk County. So what they're having to do and what they have to provide is not only behavioral health, but pediatrics and trauma. And all those things cost a lot of money with very few payers, especially when people don't have their own health insurance, which is a whole nother issue that I don't know that we should discuss from this dais because we're not the federal government. But I do think that it's something we have to consider as citizens, is that when Orlando Regional Health comes in here, and I asked Orlando Regional Health whenever that was approved to build that hospital, what their service lines were going to be. I can guarantee you, although they're a nonprofit hospital, they know exactly that their service lines are going to rape and pillage financially our Lakeland Regional Healthcare Center. They're going to do cardiac, which raises much more money. It's a higher profit service line, as is, certain other healthcare initiatives. So for me, that was why I didn't vote to approve the Orlando Regional Health coming into our market. I wanted to support the Lakeland Regional Healthcare that we have here in Lakeland, and I'll say a couple more things about that. But as a nonprofit hospital, although you're talking about profit margin, that money goes right back into the hospital itself. So it procures items that they're regularly budgeted, isn't in their regular budget. So when you run a nonprofit, whether it's a healthcare nonprofit or a congressional classroom nonprofit or whatever it is, there are no shareholders to pay out to. What it does is it builds back the infrastructure of what you have. It doesn't mean you don't make money. It means that money goes right back into the programming and serving your community. So, for instance, if we have a NICU that needs extra tubing or extra warming blankets and they're non-budgetary items, that money that's either raised through their foundation or that's raised from their the other monies that come in from service lines can pay for those things for our most critical care babies. So I think that's one of the things that we need to talk about, and why I am very happy that we've gotten to a point to discuss this lease and to really take that $14 million away from our indigent healthcare provider. And over the years, I think, well, one more thing I'll say about healthcare. You know, my dad passed away 3 years ago, and Danielle knows this. I think she lost her dad not long before I lost mine. And my dad was at a private healthcare entity in Haines City, which I think Advent may own now. And the healthcare that he received there, because he lived in Davenport, compared to the Lakeland Regional Healthcare, is a completely two different worlds. He wasn't a profit line over there. He was in their ICU for 43 days in 2012 before I could get him to LRH. And then consequently in 2018, he was here at Lakeland Regional Health and had great care, but had an emergent, had to be not medevac, but through an ambulance taken to TGH for trauma surgery. So I've seen the benefit of a TGH, which is similar to an LRH, where they have trauma surgeons that know exactly what they're doing, and their lease for Tampa General Hospital is it's between $1 and $10 a year to sit on Davis Island. And so I look at the care that's over at TGH, and I look at the care at LRH, and I think they're very comparable for trauma. But I also know that having a family member in a private, smaller nonprofit compared to a nonprofit that has 850 beds roughly, which means we're the second largest hospital in the country that doesn't have a teaching component, and that's one thing that Lakeland Regional really wants to have to service our community better, because we don't have enough primary care people involved in our community. We don't have enough dentists. There's a big healthcare void, and Lakeland Regional really helps serve this entire area. So for me, I know that's a lot of information. I'm kind of a healthcare dork. Because I've personally had to live it. And I don't want to have one of my children in an accident on Lakeland Highlands Boulevard and they'd be taken to Orlando Regional, and then medevac from Orlando Regional in Lakeland all the way to their trauma center in downtown Orlando, where I have to drive to downtown Orlando to see them. And that's one of my concerns with opening, Orlando Regional as well, is are they gonna have the profit margin and dictate where somebody's gonna go who's on the south end of Lakeland? And I know I'm saying a lot of different things and I'm kind of all over the place, and I apologize for that, but Mr. Reed, you started it. And so I just wanna say, I think for the health of our community overall, I think this is a good option. I think it's good for the city of Lakeland. I think it's good for our hospital. And I also think, as much as I appreciate that this has funded the Public Improvement Fund over the years, I think as a city, the onus is on us to look at other ways to budget that's not on the backs of people who are sick. And I really am morally compelled to share all that information, and I'm sorry if I overshared, but I'm very supportive of this. I have been since I came into office 3 years ago, and I think it's the right thing for all of us, because I think it will help the city as well be more creative in the way that we think about how we fund things. And there's no guarantee that in 5 years the hospital would be able to afford a lease in the millions of dollars anyway with the changing of healthcare. So if $215 million can come in the door right now, I vote we take it and then invest it and be smart with it, and then also help our healthcare provider in the future.
Commissioner Walker and then Commissioner Selvage.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for that dissertation, Madam Mayor.
It was no longer than Commissioner Reed's.
Got to have some humor here, But I think it's important that we understand too the many different things that the LRH has provided. But Ms. Danielle, could you come back up front for me again? Because I think it's important to understand too a critical component that we oftentimes tend to forget that it really means a lot of dollars, and that's indigent care. Indigent care, serving the underserved population, and how, if in few words, couple of sentences. You know, how we continue to do that at this particular location called Lakeland Regional Health, and will continue to do that even if this become a positive move.
Sure, absolutely. No, it's a great question. I appreciate you raising it. I think when you kind of look at an aggregate level, we see that nearly a quarter of the patients that come to us for care are either in the Medicaid or the underinsured self-pay types of categories. And when you estimate on an annual basis how much we typically are contributing between indigent care, charity care, et cetera, it can be upwards of $50 million annually in expense related to those services. So we're certainly committed to doing that. We've actually established things such as the Family Health Center across the street from the hospital, because we recognize that we have one of the busiest emergency departments in the country, and that's very unusual given the size of the community we serve. But it speaks to the fact that there is not enough access, there's not enough physicians in our community. So we're very committed to continuing to work to be able to expand services to those that may not be able to afford that as part of our mission.
And certainly knowing that, this is not the first time we've had this kind of conversation. It's been more, I think, we're at a point now where we're at a crossroad where we do or do not do, especially with the certificate of need that came into play here a couple of years ago. And also with that option 3 that keeps ringing in my mind, if we don't do anything and want to do something later on, what we can't not do because of what that option 3, it provides those restrictions for. But, and I say the option 3 because it's the way I see it attorney laid out 1, 2, 3. But certainly it's a conversation I've heard for the last almost 11 and a half years up here in this dais when it comes to, especially when we had to cap, of course, what we did just, a couple of years ago we capped. We capped it a couple of years ago. Before that, we still had to negotiate. And before that, we had to negotiate. So it's a conversation, I think, that at least 3 of us I know on the dais have had for a number of years. So I think if something that like this can come to us, and we're hearing from staff, the negotiations and the conversations, and many conversations that have been had between you, your staff, and of course our city managers and our finance director as well as our city attorney, have brought this up to us at this point. I'm at a point saying let's make it happen, and see and move forward to provide the kind of thing I think would be needed for you all and Lakeland Regional Health.
Commissioner Selvage.
10 years ago, Danielle's predecessor, Elaine Thompson, and then the board of directors chair, I think it was Jack Harrell, posed a question to me is, do you feel comfortable taking millions of dollars from your community hospital and investing in parks? Now maybe that's an oversimplification, but that question resonated with me, and it sort of stuck in my craw. I mean, hospitals are struggling so much. It is a community asset. And so early on, I decided that we somehow have to get out of this. It's just not right to be hitting our hospital with a $14 million a year bill. But I always have stuck on, well, how do we get there? And that's the business part of this deal. Mm-hmm. And then Justin Troller, one of the predecessors here, he argued, and we modified it, brought the lease back down to where it is now. But I believe that our city manager and city attorney and our finance director have brought us a proposal that looks to me like a pretty good business deal. And so for that reason, Mr. Mayor, I intend to support this. Thank you.
Commissioner Madden.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you so much, Danielle, for being here. I do agree, with Commissioner Reed that this is probably one of the biggest decisions that we'll make as a commission. And, I understand his concerns about the volatility of the market and the worries there for the 6% assumptions. I think everyone is worried about the future, and we are in uncertain times. And so I have been uncertain and worried about the threats with this revenue stream since I became a commissioner, when I realized that our property taxes didn't even cover our police. I was amazed to learn that our hospital lease and our electric dividend are what give us the luxury quality of living that we've enjoyed for decades. of course, knowing that, you'd love to hold on to that revenue stream and think that was a good business decision. I really enjoy having the quality of life that we have in Lakeland, Florida, and I want to hold on to that. And yet when you consider that the way that tenant, Lakeland Regional Health, has grown and blossomed, it's by federal, state dollars that are designated to health care, and it's through charitable dollars that are designated to health care. And when you see the new pediatric wing and know that people in our community gave millions of dollars to build that building on a piece of land that we owned, and then a portion of that money that they're giving, charitably for health care for pediatrics will have to go to the city to build parks and rec and also fire trucks and those things. If I sit in the seat of the charitable giver who also then gives money to our parks, our Kiwanis clubs and our Rotary clubs, and charitable people throughout our city have invested into our parks. Their charitable people are building a large park right now. And so it came to me that this decision that's before us is not who's going to win, it's we need everyone to win. We need firefighters and police officers and our quality of life with our parks to win, but we need our healthcare system to win. And when I heard about that ominous threat that the certificate of need was going to go away, it's going to go away, and to think, well, that'll bring competition in and they'll take our good paying, customers, and then that'll erode our margins. They won't be able to pay our lease. What's going to happen? We're not going to have that revenue stream. And then all of a sudden it happened. And we didn't have a plan A or a plan B or a plan C on what to do when that happened. I was worried. I was worried that I voted for Lake Crago Park and that I voted for other parks, not knowing that that was an imminent threat, that we didn't know for sure the certainty of that lease payment. So to be able to look at a year after COVID, when places across the country are still closed down, to think that our interest rates are low enough for them to be able to get the kind of money to offer us $215 million right now, and to think that we are able to, in a place, our city finance department and our hospital board come to this kind of agreement in this volatility, in the midst of uncertainty, to me, I think it's a miracle. I believe in miracles and, count it for what it's worth, but to know that we have some kind of certainty. No, it's not absolute certainty. We can't know that we're going to get 6% on that money. None of us know if our retirement accounts are going to get that. We, hope they do. But I think this is as certain of a deal that we can give. It allows the Lakeland Regional Health to be able to continue to get charitable funds to build buildings, and this behavioral health center that's coming that we were able to celebrate the groundbreaking, a loss leader, things that people are not investing and that we so desperately need after a year like we've had for behavioral health. I just think that it's really an honor to sit in here with both sides and to know it was a hard decision. And neither side was probably absolutely happy with the deal. But that's kind of how life is, and that's what good deals are, when both have to give a little and come together and negotiate. And I'm so proud of our community. It was a year and a half ago, I think, that I said, this needs to be a community conversation. This is everybody's hospital. This is all of our parks and rec and our fire, department. We can't make this decision alone, and it can't be one side against another. This needs to be all of us coming together, considering the costs, making some, concessions on each side and saying, this is how we're going to move forward as a community for the best of all involved. And so I absolutely will be voting in favor, and I'm very proud, that we get to make this big decision today.
Excellent comment. Thank you. Commissioner McLeod.
Sure, and not to draw out the vote on this, I think my colleagues have summed it up very nicely, especially for those of you who've, Commissioner Selvage, you've been working on this or been around this issue, Commissioner Walker, for many years now. And Commissioner Madden, what you said about we need our healthcare system to win, I truly believe that great cities have great healthcare. And so it would be hard to sit here and support a continuation of a $15 million a year lease payment and take a wait-and-see attitude until 2040 when there's so much uncertainty, and you use that word, and I think you're right there. So I think it's an opportunity for us as a city that the hospital is in a position to be able to borrow at low interest rates, and so it gives us that that time before 2040 to figure out some of the scenarios that the city manager outlined. So I appreciate Sean, Mike, everybody's work on this, because I think you mentioned, Commissioner Madden, if you had said several years ago we'd be here, you wouldn't have believed it. So I think it's a great thing from a public policy standpoint, and good for the city of Lakeland.
I certainly concur with a lot of those comments, and I think sometimes when you think that the hospital makes $20 million or $30 or $40 million, well, why is this an issue? Not only is it a not-for-profit, so all that money goes back in, but that's the purest measure of operating efficiency that you can have in this very tumultuous environment, where you have almost $1 billion of revenue annually, and you get to $20 million. That's razor thin. Razor thin. And many hospitals in America have to be subsidized underneath that at hundreds of millions of dollars annually. And so think about the fact that we have an efficient organization with a high quality of care that is able to attain that, and then to reinvest it, and we see the fruit of that in terms of the facilities being built, adding behavioral health that will never make money, but meets a community need. And the purpose of it is not to make money. It's because it's a safety net hospital that comes together to try and meet the needs, the growing needs, the urgent needs of a community at large. And that's what they've done. So yes, is this a compromise on both parties' parts? I absolutely agree, because it doesn't feel good to either one of them. Okay, it doesn't feel good to us to have to give up some timing on the public improvement fund, and it doesn't feel good to the hospital to have to pay more in advance on a net present value basis than they would have to pay if they were just doing it as an arithmetic formula. But it's a recognition of the middle ground that helps to satisfy both sides, and then allow each of them to do with certainty what needs to be done in the future. Are there any other comments from the audience? All right, this is a roll call vote. We start at your end, sir.
Aye.
No.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Passes 6-1. Thank you so much. Appreciate your time and appreciate the opportunity for you all to be here.
Good stuff,
All right, that brings us then back to the city manager's report, item 5A.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. The first item that I have is regarding a recommendation for an award of an RFQ to Amherst Consulting Company and Atkins North America for engineering contracts for the reconstruction of Taxiway P and Taxiway E at Lakeland Linder International Airport. The Federal Aviation Administration requires the Lakeland Linder International Airport to file an application for federal assistance for projects to be considered by the FAA for funding within the current fiscal year. To complete an application, the design through bidding needs to be completed and construction bids obtained. The airport intends to submit applications for the reconstruction of taxiways E and P. The airport advertised for the architectural and engineering professional services for both projects under RFQ 1006 in December 2020, with 5 firms responding to the request. The selection committee met on January 21st to rank the firms to provide the design and construction administration for each of the 2 projects. Amherst Consulting Company and Atkins North America were ranked as the top firms. Based on the rankings, the airport awarded the design for the reconstruction of Taxiway E to Amherst Consulting Company and the design for the reconstruction of Taxiway P to Atkins North America. The FAA requires that an independent fee estimate be prepared by a third-party engineering firm and that the negotiated fee be within 10% of the independent fee estimate. The airport engaged Cutchins & Grow out of Tampa to prepare the fee estimate for both of the projects. The proposed contracts were reviewed and negotiated by airport staff, and both proposed contracts with Amherst and Atkins are within the acceptable 10% range. It is recommended that the City Commission authorize the appropriate city officials to enter into a contract with Amherst Consulting Company in the not-to-exceed amount of $698,600 to provide the professional services for design through bidding phase of the reconstruction of Taxiway E, subject to approvals from the Florida Department of Transportation and the FAA. Appropriations will not be required for this portion of the request. It is also recommended that the City Commission authorize the appropriate city officials to enter into a contract with Atkins North America in the not-to-exceed amount of $539,060 to provide the professional services for the design through bidding phase of the reconstruction of Taxiway P, subject to approval from the FAA. It's also recommended that the City Commission would authorize an appropriation and increase in estimated revenues from the airport's unappropriated surplus of $539,060 to support this request. That completes presentation, and we will stand for any questions.
There's a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Second.
And a second? Did you get the second? Who was the second? Commissioner McLeod? Okay. I'm sorry, I missed it as well. Discussion by commissioners. Any discussion by the audience? Seeing none, this is a voice vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Unanimously passes.
Thank you. The next item that I have is a recommendation regarding a task authorization with Environmental Science Associates Incorporated for a Lake Bonny wetland water quality improvement study. The Lakes and Stormwater Division solicited a scope of services from Environmental Science Associates to assist the city in complying with its municipal separate storm sewer system, national pollutant discharge elimination system permit requirements pertaining to total maximum daily loads, or TMDLs, nutrient load reduction requirements for Lake Bonny. The Lake Bonny TMDL identified both external and in-lake processes as potential factors to implement water quality restoration projects to achieve the required load reductions. This work effort proposes to evaluate water quality improvements through nutrient reduction via wetland restoration and attenuation processes. The task authorization summarizes the targeted plan developed by Environmental Science to evaluate the existing wetland on the west side of Lake Bonny for potential water quality improvement through nutrient load reductions. Funding for the Lake Bonny Wetland Water Quality Improvement Study is provided in the FY21 Stormwater Utility CIP. It is recommended that the City Commission authorize the appropriate city officials to execute the task authorization with Environmental Science Associates for a Lake Bonny Wetland Water Quality Improvement Study in the amount of $55,586. That completes staff's presentation, and we do have Ms. Smith with us if there are any questions.
Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
And a second from Commissioner McCarley. Any questions by commissioners or discussion? Or Madden, I'm sorry, I can't see.
We're all alike. Don't worry.
That's right. Okay. Second by Commissioner Madden. Any discussion by commissioners or questions of Ms. Smith? Any by the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Unanimously passes. Thank you for being here.
The next item is a recommendation regarding a task authorization with Wood Environment and Infrastructure Solutions Incorporated for a Crystal Lake water quality improvement study. The City of Lakeland has been awarded a reimbursable 50% matching cooperative funding initiative grant from the South Florida Water Management District for the Crystal Lake water quality improvement study. The proposed project consists of a feasibility study to evaluate nutrient reduction sediment treatment options to improve water quality in Crystal Lake. Crystal Lake does not meet current water quality standards and has a Florida Department of Environmental Protection mandated nutrient reduction plan. The results of the feasibility study will be used to implement the full-scale sediment restoration project to meet the water quality standards. To assist in these tasks, a not-to-exceed fee of $239,772 has been negotiated under the city's continuing municipal engineering agreement with Wood Environment and Infrastructure Solutions. Funding for this project is provided in the FY21 Stormwater CIP budget. It should also be noted that Polk County Parks and Natural Resources Division has agreed to continue to co-fund water quality assessment, monitoring, and restoration projects at 33% of the cost incurred via reimbursement to the City of Lakeland upon completion of the project. It is also expected that SwiftMud will continue its 50% cooperative funding of the project through the restoration phase that will be implemented based on the recommendations of the feasibility study. So it is recommended that the City Commission authorize the appropriate city officials to execute the task authorization with Wood Environment and Infrastructure Solutions for the Crystal Lake Water Quality Improvement Study in the not to exceed amount that has been presented. That completes presentation.
Motion to approve?
And is there a second?
Second.
And a second. Discussion by commissioners. Commissioner Selvage.
I'd just like to point out, congratulations to the Lakes Division under Lori's leadership. You'll notice that it says the City of Lakeland has been awarded a reimbursable 50% matching cooperative funding initiative. That means that somebody took the initiative to go out and ask for it and win it. And I like what I see with what we're trying to do with our namesake, our lakes. And so, Lori, congratulations to you and Public Works and the rest of you out there.
Good word, sir. Any other comments by commissioners? Any comments by the audience? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same. Unanimously passes. It brings you to your final item.
My next and final item, since the final item was put on consent, the final item I will be presenting today is a recommendation regarding an award of a bid to Cobb Site Development, construction agreement for the Main Street Pathways Project, and task authorization with Kissinger, Campo, and Associates Corporation for construction, engineering, and inspection services. The Main Street Pathways Project includes the construction of a 10-foot wide multi-use asphalt trail along the south side of East Main Street between Interlochen Parkway and Longfellow Boulevard. Improvements to the traffic signal at the intersection of East Main Street and Longfellow Boulevard, consisting of new signal poles and mast arms to eliminate the span wire traffic signal, as well as the installation of pedestrian indicators and the installation of ADA deployment and bench pads at each of the transit stops within the corridor. Following a prior unsuccessful advertisement of the project, proposals were again solicited through the city's purchasing division in October and in December. 2 proposed bids were received. Of the 2 bids received, Larson's Grading and Paving was deemed unresponsive due to the lack of the required bid bond and other required information. Therefore, Cobb Site Development was determined to be the lowest responsive bidder. Subsequently, then, a notice of intent to award was issued by the city's purchasing department in February to Cobb Site Development. Funding in the amount of $773,061 will be reimbursable through a local agency program agreement between the FDOT and the City of Lakeland. The City of Lakeland will provide the shortfall amount of $28,943.48 for the Transportation Fund. There will be 2 phases of work on this project. Phase 1 work will be 140 calendar days and will include lead time to procure traffic signal equipment. Phase 2 work will be 130 calendar days and will include the construction of the multi-use path, traffic signal work, and all the other construction as called for in the contract plans. Additionally, the city solicited a proposal from Kissinger, Campo, and Associates, also known for the rest of the presentation as KCA, one of the city's continuing professional services contractors for construction and engineering inspection services for the Main Street Pathways construction project. Funding for KCA and city staff oversight in the amount up to $82,050 will be reimbursable through a local agency program agreement between the FDOT and the City of Lakeland. It is recommended that the City Commission authorize the award of bid number 0323 to Cobb Site Development Incorporated for the Main Street Pathways Project and authorize the appropriate city officials to execute the construction agreement in the amount of $802,004.48. It's also recommended that the City Commission authorize the appropriate city officials to execute the task authorization for construction and engineering inspection services with KCA for the Main Street Pathways Project in the amount not to exceed $69,431. That completes staff's presentation. We stand for any questions.
Move to approve.
Motion to approve and a second by?
Second.
Second, Commissioner McLeod. Discussion, Commissioner Walker. Oh, sorry. I didn't see your hand. I apologize.
Okay.
Commissioner McCarley.
I was just curious if this is going to connect to another trail. Like, is there a trail that runs along the west side of Lake Bonnie, or is that in the future plan?
Yeah, this does connect on the west side to an existing trail on the west side of Lake Bonny, that will eventually connect down to Lake Hollingsworth. On the east side, this is the first segment of the East Lake Parker Trail, which we hope to bring up the east side of Lake Parker to connect to that Tenor Rock Trail system that we're working on as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Lazenby.
Thank you, and even in reference to what you just mentioned, the boat ramp, I think it's right there in Lake Bonny along this particular path. Will we have any improvements in that? I know money's not been allocated through this for that.
This project begins just to the east of the
Just east of that?
boat ramp. There are some transit improvements and things around that, but nothing specific to the boat ramp as a part of this project.
But again, if I heard you correct, there are some improvements that will be done to the boat ramp?
No. The
Not
project,
for this, I know.
let me rephrase. The project commences just east of the boat ramp. There's some transit improvements in the general vicinity to the east, but there's nothing specific to the boat ramp itself included in this project.
Thank you.
Your great boat ramp, though, at Lake Parker.
Yeah.
All right, other comments or questions?
And just for the record, this is, as you all know, Ryan Lazenby. He's our civil engineering manager in the Public Works Department and resident rock star, like many of the other employees.
He'll take it. All right, any comments or questions from the audience at all? Okay, all those in favor signify by swoops. Yeah, saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Unanimously passes. Voice vote, sorry. And that takes us to our city attorney, item A1.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have several ordinances for first reading. These ordinances will be read by title only today and will come back for a public hearing and consideration of final decision on March 15th. The first is proposed ordinance number 21-009, an ordinance relating to zoning, making findings, approving a conditional use to allow 4 single-family attached dwelling units on property located at 24 Lake Hollingsworth Drive, finding conformity with the comprehensive plan, providing for severability, providing an effective date. Next is proposed ordinance number 21-10, an ordinance relating to zoning, making findings, providing for a change in zoning classification to PUD, plain unit development zoning, to allow a maximum of 40 single-family attached dwelling units on approximately 4.55 acres located south of Druid Street and east of Gilmore Avenue, providing conditions, finding conformity with the comprehensive plan, providing an effective date. Next is proposed ordinance number 21-011, an ordinance relating to zoning, making findings, amending ordinance 4547 as amended, provide for a modification to PUD plain unit development zoning for tract E of Morgan Creek Preserve on approximately 35.08 acres located south of Medella Road, east of Hamlin Road, and north of West Pipkin Road, to allow for the construction of 56 single-family detached homes, finding conformity with the comprehensive plan, providing for severability, providing an effective date. And last is proposed ordinance number 21-012, an ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Lakeland, Florida, related to nuisance abatement, amending Article 4 of Chapter 38 of the City Code of the City of Lakeland, Florida, making findings, adding criteria upon which a nuisance can be based, increasing total fine that may be imposed for a nuisance, establishing conditions for the abatement of a nuisance upon rental property, providing for the repeal of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for severability, providing an effective date. Once again, these ordinances will come back before the City Commission on March 15th for a public hearing and consideration of final decision. Few resolutions for action today. First is
I have a question about 2111. My emails tend to start getting pretty hot and heavy on this. Are we facing a March 15th commission meeting where the chambers are going to be overcrowded, like we did the last time, Carolyn Lakes? I can't judge, I don't know how controversial this is going to be, but anybody else have an idea?
I've asked that question, and I don't think the attendance was overwhelming at the Planning and Zoning Board meeting, but it could be different before the City Commission.
So was the P&Z meeting attended by a large crowd?
Attended by?
The Planning and Zoning?
I think there were fewer than 10 in attendance.
I don't know the answer.
Teresa nodded that there were fewer than 10 people in attendance for this particular item. I know that several of these are going to have some opposition.
Right.
I'm not aware, though, of the volume of emails anywhere near like we experienced with the other.
Not like Carolina Lakes. I haven't seen it.
All right, resolutions?
First is proposed resolution number 21-012, and a resolution relating to assessments, determining the necessity for having cleaned and cleared certain properties within the city of Lakeland, providing for the assessment of liens against such property for expenses incurred in the cleaning and clearing thereof, providing an effective date. And I would just note that you removed 2042 West Hickory Street from the equalization roll, so that should be removed from this resolution as well.
Move approval. Second.
Motion approved in a second was whose? Yours, Commissioner Selvage?
Nope, just second.
Okay, thank you. Discussion by commissioners. Any discussion by the audience? All those in favor signify by saying, roll call by Commissioner Walker.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Next is proposed resolution number 21-013, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Lakeland, Florida relating to planning, amending the City of Lakeland Local Government Comprehensive Planning Certification Program Agreement, providing for an admitted boundary description of the certified area, making findings, providing an effective date.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Discussion by commissioners. Any discussion by the audience? This is a roll call as well. Commissioner McLeod.
Aye.
I would like to make a comment.
Comment, slowing down. Commissioner Reed. Yes.
There again, I'd like to congratulate our staff. This saves a tremendous amount of time to our citizens without having to relay things up to the state, Tallahassee, and come back. So I think we're one of 6 cities in the state of Florida that we have that capability of doing it ourselves. And with that, I'd like to just say congratulations to our Community Development Department.
Excellent word, sir.
And
And aye. Okay, go ahead.
Aye.
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 Aye. Unanimously passes as well.
Next is proposed resolution number 21-014, a resolution relating to elections, delegating certain administrative duties to the city clerk, appointing the city clerk as a member of the canvassing board for a limited purpose, making findings, providing an effective date.
Move approval.
And a second? And by Commissioner McLeod. And you don't get to vote on this, Kelly. Okay, all right. Discussion by commissioners. Any discussion by the audience? We thank you for the extraordinarily good job you do for us in this and many other areas. All those, no, this is a roll call vote as well. So the Commissioner McLeod?
Aye.
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 And the final matter that I have is under utility, the fuel charge resolution, which is proposed resolution number 21-015, a resolution relating to the electric utility, making findings, establishing the fuel charge for all customer classes for meters read on or after April 1st, 2021, amending time of day fuel charge for applicable rate classes, repealing resolution number 5643, providing an effective date.
Move approval.
Motion to approve and a second from
Second.
Commissioner McLeod. Discussion by commissioners. Any discussion by the audience? Seeing none, this is a roll call vote. Commissioner Walker?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
And that is all I have.
All right. We have an opportunity now for any comments from the audience. If there's any audience people, just one at a time, just state your name, please. And Kelly will have you on a timer.
Mayor, Commission, my name is Reverend Howard Mathis, and I'm entertaining, I'm bringing forth a cease and desist notice. And it reads from Reverend Howard A. Mathis, 6109 High Glen Drive, Lakeland, Florida, 33813, date March 1st, 2021. Reference, notice for cease and desist from the city holding red light camera hearings with hearing officers on the city payroll. Dear City Mayor and Commissioners, I come before you today to issue this notice and give you a warning of the consequences of your actions if you fail to adhere. You have approved per your ordinance the authority that gives the city the authorization under Florida Statute 316.0083, Mark Wendell Traffic Safety Program Administration Report. The authority to issue red light camera violation and to hold hearings if they are contested. The Florida statutes grant you the authority to have them heard by a local hearing officer, but what it doesn't not grant is the illegal or biased perception of you having those hearing officers on your city payroll. This process is set up as being a mere kangaroo court. If you were to ask 10 people out on the street corner whether they feel they would have a fair hearing while the magistrate over the process is on the city payroll, I can most assure you that they would all say no. This creates an impermissible financial interest in the case. While it does not remedy the violation of mine and thousands of others' due process rights of past deliberation, it will limit the exposure of the legal liability of you going forward. I'm requesting that this and any similar action be stopped within the next 10 days. This is my last warning regarding these unethical and supposedly illegal processes. While I have already filed a federal lawsuit action against you, I almost can assure you that a class action style suit is inevitable. Respectfully submitted, Reverend Howard Mathis.
Thank you, sir. And would you like to comment on that?
Sure. The only thing I would state is that we're confident that our red light camera program complies with all the legal requirements that are contained in the Mark Wandell Traffic Safety Act. It's been tested a number of times in court, and we have always succeeded in upholding the validity of the program. So.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other comments from the audience? Yes, sir. Please come up. Sorry.
My name is Michael Stewart, retiree from the city of Lakeland, worked at the power plant. I'd like to discuss recent events and Unit 3's soon-to-be decommissioning. Recently, LE and City of Lakeland have decided on a future shutdown and decommissioning of the coal-fired Unit 3 plant with an estimated date of sometime in March this year, I think the 31st. The City of Lakeland approved a contract with OEC to pay them $23.5 million as a reservation fee for the opportunity to purchase up to 125 megawatts of power in the future. Normally, a reservation fee is only paid on an actual megawatt power purchase. I'm not sure why we're giving them this reservation fee other than maybe a possible way to pay back their costs for the Unit 3 230 volt kV volt line. On February 20th, 2021, an article by Zero Hedge discussed how wholesale power prices jumped from $50 per megawatt to more than $9,000 per megawatt, and about the horror stories that poured in of customers who had huge power bill increases. I read how one customer had a usual bill of $387 that climbed to $8,162.73 for the month. Another said that his electric bill usually averages $660 per month and his new bill is $17,000. I realize these customers were on variable power rate plans, but it shows just how volatile wholesale electric prices can be. In another article from Zero Hedge dated February 25th, 2021, they state, in quotes, "The Texas energy crisis has morphed from a power grid failure to a humanitarian emergency to a credit crisis as billions of dollars in power bills come due. According to Financial Times, electricity retailers, municipal utilities, and power generation companies were purchasing power during the crisis when rates surged to a cap of $9,000 a megawatt hour last week. They owe a whopping $50 billion. Exelon Corporation has said it might record losses up to $710 million due to the power rate volatility. In Reuters today, they state that Texas's oldest, largest power cooperative, Brazos Electric Power Cooperative Incorporated filed for bankruptcy protection today, citing a disputed $1.8 billion bill for from the state's grid operator. Also in that article, Malin Patinia, founder of Volt Electric Power Provider, LP, an independent power marketer that is not a member of the Brazos Cooperative, stated the municipal power sector is in a real crisis. Please don't think that this can't happen in Florida or Lakeland Electric. Just remember the Christmas freeze of 1989 when Florida was purchasing power from out of state.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart.
I usually have 5 minutes, not 3 minutes.
We had 3 minutes.
Well, it used to be 5. I would like to have my full 5 minutes.
You don't get your full 5 minutes.
Also recent.
Sit down, sir. Please sit down. Thank you.
That's ridiculous.
Thank you, sir. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak? Yes, ma'am.
But I heard 5 minutes also when I got the memo, to be honest with you.
Okay, well, it's 3 minutes for today. That's where Kelly's at. Okay. You have to go to the, oh, you want me to pass that out?
No, that's okay. That's okay. I was geared to do it a different way.
Okay.
But
All right.
let me do this. Let me bring my house here and put it down and tell you that I'm homeless because of it. This is a transformer that's in my house.
I think we need to get her on the
We need to have you on the mic, and you can just state your name
sorry,
first.
sorry.
And we haven't started the time, so you're good. So if you state your name.
I was just going to lay it down on here.
Actually, hand it to me and I will.
Yeah, okay. All right. So this is a transformer that's in my house going through with the noise 24/7 at decibels higher than what the law allows.
Can you state your name for the record, please?
Oh, yes, of course. Barbara Texter, South Lakeland. I'm trying to live there, but I can't right now. And I have a problem with Lakeland Electric. I've requested an analog meter and because I have a disability, and they're not giving it to me. But what they are giving to me is electric that I cannot live with in the house. And I've got readings here, and you can see like the 1800 range here, that should be a reading of 50, no more than that. And if I was in Europe, it would be 25. So I have my levels. And I took levels here, and you guys are clean. And I took levels in Hillsborough with Tico, and they are the cleanest yet. They have zeros. Here we go. And basically, since I'm running on the clock here, I would like someone to take this and pick up the ball and carry it for me, since I can't be reading from it. Because in the process, I have found that the meter they have given me has a defect that affects all of us. There is no filter in that meter. So our lungs are the filters, and therefore you have this scenario going on. Well, some of us have it. But basically, I would like to be able to be put back on the $30 analog, and I've bought the analog. I actually bought 2 of them, and it's just a matter of getting permission to have a life again. But the rest of it is kind of in here with all the exhibits and how it's all shaken down. I've been kind of blacklisted by Lakeland Electric. That's it in a nutshell.
We will follow up on that for you.
Oh, that would be great. Great.
Would you like to give us that too?
Yeah, we'll do. The whole enchilada.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
All right.
I think that's everything. Is there not another audience speaker? Yes, please come up.
My name's Rob Updegrove, the president of the Retirees Association. Also, I was the very first president of UWA. And ma'am, I'm sorry, back in the Eden and W days, Lakeland Electric would have took care of that problem. And I'm here kind of following up with Mike. Anybody familiar here with People's Gas? We could have bought that. It's Tico's Gas now. The city could have bought it, but made a bad mistake. I was in your area today talking to people about what's fixing to happen to Unit 3. And we got talking about Texas. Everybody's familiar with that. And, you know, did we do a committee or something to what Joel's decided to do with Unit 3? We spent $60,000 to come up with that SWAN there with the committee. Why couldn't we run a committee to find out what we're going to do with Unit 3 and how it's going to affect every other department and how it's going to affect when we pull some of the highest paying jobs out of the city of Lakeland, how it's going to affect the retirees, and how if we have a problem between here and Orlando, 2004, we worked a lot of hurricanes coming here. So, and what Mike's talking about, right now, when y'all get out of here, gas just went up another 10 cents. So are we against people, the people, the average citizen here in Lakeland now, that we're going to let their power rates go up because somebody who lives in Lone Palm has decided that he's going to make a decision that could cost down the future? And I'm just getting involved with this, and I think it's wrong, and I think the citizens of Lakeland should fully be aware, and maybe y'all weren't aware. And if we can't handle it, maybe we should do like OUC that's making these good commitments, because they got a utility commission that decides what to do. You know, I worked for Lakeland Electric a long time. I love the city of Lakeland. City of Lakeland gets my money, but you got to remember 250 square miles around here, Lakeland Electric supplies the power to them people, and they come here and spend our money. So I know I know that I'm stirring up ant hill, but I've done it before, and I just want to thank you for everything you're doing. I don't think you got all the right information, but I'm going to make sure the rest of the city knows the information, because I think it's a bad mistake, just like when we didn't buy People's Gas. But I thank you for it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir, for your comments. Are there any other audience members? Please state your name, sir.
Mr. Mayor and City Commission, I'm Alex Harper, pastor of First Baptist Institutional Church. I'm here today. We have been celebrating June 10th since 1952. 52.
You can take that off. That's fine.
Okay, thank you. And so what I'm humbly asking you to do today, to pass a June 10th resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Harper. Appreciate it. Good to see you, sir. Great. Are there any other comments? You can be bookends on this, see?
Absolutely. I was here before, and like Doris Moore Bailey.
You can take your mask off of them. Thank you.
Doris Moore Bailey, Lakeland. I was here before, and there were no questions asked, and I was surprised of that because you knew I was on the agenda, and I did come before you all, and I requested to speak. I also requested to have Juneteenth receive a resolution as well. So nothing happened. Am I not a human being? Am I not a citizen of this city? I'd just like to know, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners, is there something, there has to be, you talk about compromising and working on other things together. Why not with the city of Lakeland? And you passed a resolution for May the 20th. And so far as I know, except for maybe Bartow was thinking about passing one today. I don't know if that happened or not. But I know so far, May the 2nd was Lakeland and Tallahassee. No one else has done that. I am the regional director for Juneteenth nationally. I serve for the state of Florida, Georgia, and South Carolina. And people who have been celebrating Juneteenth, they're not going to change. They're not going to change over it and do something else. They're just accustomed to doing that on that day. It's the closest day to July. So if you have July the 4th for, America getting their freedom from Britain, then you have Juneteenth for Americans, or African Americans, enslaved African Americans receiving their freedom. It just so happened that, as I was told and learned, that General Mike Cook, who first I think came out of Virginia, he was on his way to New Mexico. You know, there's an incident with the boats and all of that, so he ended up Florida, then on up the coast. So I just want to have you consider that, please, and I would like to stand for any questions or comments.
Sure, go ahead. Commissioner Selvage.
Ms. Bailey, I confess, why can't we celebrate both?
I did not say that, but what your proclamation, or resolution rather, read differently. I don't have it before me, but it said something like, in Florida, Florida will celebrate May the 20th. You don't celebrate July 4th. You don't celebrate 1885, right, when Lakeland was founded.
But I saw May 20th as a state event deserving of celebration, and then why not then celebrate the national emancipation of Juneteenth? I'm struggling to see where the problem is, and I've known you for years and respect you, and I just don't see why we can't celebrate both.
It's confusing. It brings about division. That's not our history. Again, there are other states in the United States. Actually, the last two states just signed legislation was South Dakota and North Dakota. Only one state outstanding, that's Hawaii.
But don't you think May 20th?
My point?
May 20th is a date that we should honor?
If that's the case, then you should probably tell all the other states that they should celebrate when a general came into their state. But that's not the way it works. A group of African Americans got together in Louisiana, and they came together and said, hey, we're going to celebrate one day. Just as you celebrate 4th of July, 1776, when I say it before without being redundant, Florida was not a part of the original 13, nor was Florida a state. It was a territory in 1821. Did not become a state to May 4th.
So are you fearful that celebrating May 20th dilutes the meaning of Juneteenth?
If in fact, I think that the move afoot, and Walker can answer this one, the move afoot is to have, from what I understand, I mean, Tallahassee, if that's what Tallahassee pleases to do, we're talking a small group of people. We're not talking a whole lot of people. The email you sent about is the Florida League of Cities. The Florida League of Cities has not made that recommendation to have May 20th as a day. That's not what they do, is what I was told. So that is a misnomer. That is a misrepresentation of the Florida League of Cities. So what we're saying to you today is acknowledge Juneteenth for what it is, just as you celebrate 1776, July 4th, each and every year. That's all I'm saying. And so I don't know what to tell you other than what we stand for is, okay, so what we stand for, if that is the case for May 20th, I think the way that it was done is what is problematic.
Okay,
I'm
just trying to understand.
On a time, February the 2nd, as an aside, February the 2nd, according to the Romans, was Purification Month, the whole month, not just the 2nd. But on that day, African American Emphasis Month, AKA Black History Month. So it is an insult. It's a direct insult. And I hope that it wasn't political posturing for election that's coming up sometime soon. But I hope that there was serious intent. I hope there's significant history behind all of this. And that's my thing as a history major, is to bring about that awareness. And I've done it in so many ways with the committee of people. We brought it in so many different ways. And I think you realize that. And Commissioner Madden, thank you for coming out last year. Yeah, last year's June, thank you. Time is getting gone here because of the COVID. So it's very critical that we look at this, and I know this is not a major thing for you because you have some serious business to take care of today. And but you have created, by letting this happen, you created a problem here. And it just doesn't go away that easily. and it opens up wounds. And again, we need to be healing the wounds.
Any other questions at all?
So a resolution, Juneteenth resolution?
What, Commissioner Madden?
Don't we have a Juneteenth resolution every year?
Give one every
No, that's
time.
just been proclamations I received over the years, but never a resolution.
Okay.
You have a resolution for May 2nd for May 20th.
And so, Palmer, could you tell me the difference between the resolution and the proclamation?
Well, I anticipate that if the May 20th resolution would then be recognized via a proclamation in subsequent years. You'd only do the resolution initially to establish that as a day to recognize.
Okay.
Which was done.
So there was an initial resolution to celebrate Juneteenth.
I don't know that, but
Could we check into that?
sure.
Commissioner Madden, I can tell you affirmatively, no, it has never, there's never been a resolution. There's always been a proclamation.
Let's look at that.
And
then.
I would come here to get those.
Sure.
Okay.
Let's take a look at that.
Please.
We'll take a look at that and about whether or not there has been one and create one if there hasn't. Okay.
Thank you for the question. Thank you each.
Thank you. And I apologize for you not feeling like we had done the questions. I apologize for that. Okay. Anything else? Any other comments from citizens? All right, comments by commissioners. Who wants to start? Commissioner Walker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let me just share that I think you saw the Discovery Trail that happened, during the last 2+ weeks of Black History Month. I want to just thank the Parks and Recreation Department, especially Coach. I always call him Coach John Williams, but Mr. John Williams, there, the recreation supervisor at Simpson Park, and his staff, and working with, Parks and Rec Director Bob Donahue, and putting that particular Discovery Trail together. I think, if anyone did it virtual, if you weren't able to go out and do it, as I call it, by face, and go to the various sites, as I'm sure many folk did participate in, it opened a lot of history, I think, that people may have forgotten or even, have not known. And I'm excited about that because, with us having the Lakeland History and Culture Center to now, begin construction at our main library for that particular center is going to help bring about so much more information, not only about African Americans, but also other ethnicities that have done so many great things here in Lakeland to make Lakeland what it is today. So I want to make sure that Parks and Recreation Department knows how I believe that particular emphasis they did to share with so many of our Lakelanders about that particular history trail as it was put together was very well done, and I think it could be even enhanced, and I'm sure it will be, as I've talked with some of the other folk about it, and looking forward to it even being a continual situation, even though we may still hopefully next year have the festival that we always had in Jackson Park, the Black History Month festival as such. Spring training is here. Tigers are here, and of course I have not been to either. We did our own what we call virtual opening to celebrate the spring training and Detroit Tigers games. But I want to make sure our listening audience and those who may be watching as well know that it's upon us, and hopefully we get some folk out that not as many as we want to have out, but certainly be able to get folk out to the games and be able to participate in not only spring training, but we also had Florida State girls basketball last weekend, and now the boys is coming up here very soon here this weekend as well. Lastly, if I could share, next week is the National League of Cities Congressional City Conference, and as I have been a participant of that particular conference for a number of years, thank you to my colleagues for allowing me to be able to represent Lakeland in that particular aspect. It's going to be done virtual this year. Last year, when we were in D.C., the conference, the National League of Cities Conference, is always in D.C. because we get to go to speak to our congressional representatives. And I've already spoken to Congressman Franklin through to texting he and I here in a few days. But certainly during that particular conference, we bring issues up that concern cities, of course, across the nation. But particularly so, I'm concerned about what the cities here in our state of Florida and, of course, Lakeland, my hometown. It's going to be done virtual this year because of the COVID situation. Last year when we were there, as I was about to share, was when we first got word of the pandemic or the actual COVID-19 situation, as it was announced during, I think, our very first conference setting last year. And that's when we began to wear masks and be able to have hand sanitizer. It was asked not to shake hands. And look at it, it's been a year now.
It has to be more than a year.
So, I can remember those days, the days when I was coming back home. My son was able to attend with me at the conference and come back home to Lakeland and find out how this particular situation began to just evolve. But I will be in attendance next week during our virtual conference time as we plan to piggyback. Right after that will be the Florida Black Caucus of Local Elected Officials conference, and that will be in person here in Florida this year. And it's going to move from South Florida, where it's been for the last probably 5 years, to Central Florida now, so we can get more participation from those elected officials that are in the North Florida area. And again, I'll be there too, supporting that conference as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Selvage.
Thank you, Mayor. We have 4 candidates for the Southeast seat election in April. I encourage everybody to get to know these gentlemen. All of us up here know what it takes to stand up and have the guts to say, hey, will you vote for me? And I admire all 4 of these men, and I ask that everybody take the time to get to know them, because they'll be making decisions like you saw tonight. I do want to take some time to talk to you about another thing in Lakeland that we sometimes take for granted. We've talked a lot about parks and lakes, but the city of Lakeland is an arboretum. It has an urban forest of some 56,000 trees managed by our Parks and Rec division. It has 300 species. And I bring that up. We're a level 1 accreditation on our urban forest. And I say this because I want to come around to another one of my unsung heroes. In addition to our urban forest, we have some of the best flower beds and nursery in the southeastern United States. So I want to talk to you about Bill Cohn. Bill started with the city of Lakeland before some of you were born in 1970. And he now is the horticultural specialist. He designs city landscapes. He's on the commercial landscaping inspector. And Bill is devoted to the flower beds and parks in this city. If you ever get an opportunity, ride a half a day with Bill Cohn. Now, I want to tell you about the Rose Garden. The Rose Garden is now down in Veterans Park. It was built there by a ladies' bicentennial group in 1976, our bicentennial year. It's now called the Veterans Rose Garden. And many of the species there are named after 4th of July honor, John F. Kennedy, Let Freedom Ring, those type of species. It is recognized as the premier rose garden in the Southeast. And so it just shows you again, when we have people like Bill Cohn, who's worked 50 years here and loves what he does and influences the city so much. And I just want to thank Bill. He and his wife Carol have 9 grandchildren and 16 great-grandchildren. So like our mayor, he hasn't done all of his time working. He's been able to have a great family. Bill and I share a love of baseball. My bucket list includes seeing every baseball park in America. I have not accomplished that, but Bill has. So, Bill, thanks for your work. Oh, by the way,
Remote clap.
the original Rose Garden was where we are. We are sitting on it. Before they expanded City Hall, this was a parking lot and a rose garden between City Hall and All Saints. And so they moved it down to Veterans Park in 1973, 76.
Very interesting, sir. Thank you. Commissioner McCarley.
I have a staff question, but then I have a couple comments, and you can get back to me on this. But I've gotten a lot of phone calls and emails from Caroline Lakes about AquaClean and their processing after hours, after office hours, and over the weekends. And Mayor, sorry.
I could actually do this one if you want. When she's done. I went there Friday.
Oh, good.
So I met with Mike, I just went blank, Zeller, who is super conscientious. So the big news for me was walking away with just the care. This bothers him as much as it does them. This is a 15-year cleaning process. It won't happen again for another 15 years. It's the kind of tank inspections we do for our water tanks where they have to then bead them and get them clean. He's moved it so nothing is happening on the weekend and nothing happens except between 8 and 5 during the week, and they're on the last week. This is the last week.
Awesome.
If something were found, they might have to go into next week, but they expect to finish this week. I took a tour of the properties and went through everything because the resounding concerns with Caroline Lakes we all share, and just making certain this is the case. Here's the thing that I was so totally impressed by is his conscientiousness about resolving this is this high. And he followed someone who was perhaps less conscientious when he took this job a dozen or so years ago. And so, and I'm not making a comment on that, I'm just reiterating what I've learned. And so I think that we'll see this resolved completely.
Okay, great. Awesome. Thank you for that.
If I may,
Yeah, sure.
just add to that, Mr. Zellers does stay in pretty frequent contact with city staff and the city manager's office. He had notified us that they were going to be going through this process, and he had also told us that he had met with the president of their homeowners association to try to spread the word around. They have experienced some delays, which has made this process a little longer than anticipated, but he was very forthcoming with the information, so we would be aware.
Yeah, they said that they were aware that it was going to be happening. I think it's just probably the prolonged and the concern on environmental impacts and all that for residents. But thank you for that. That's really helpful. My second thing really quickly is regarding our Lakeland Area Mass Transit Board. Just a really quick update. Commissioner Madden had asked me a while back to do this, so I'm happy she did and reminded me to. But just to let everyone know, the Peach Line, which is the South Florida circulators that avoid the road diet or road realignment project, we've had more than 1,000 riders for the last 4 months, totaling almost 5,000 riders. So we've seen an uptick in ridership, which is really good because then we're getting people off of South Florida and into that transit loop. And on that loop, why it's successful is because you can do a supermarket, a couple pharmacies, and it's really connecting both the west side, Dixieland area all the way down to Southgate, and then also the east side. So there have been a lot of ridership increases on that. We have 3 more creamsicle buses that have arrived, that kind of peachy, soft peachy color. They arrived and they'll be on the road later this spring. I know, that wasn't my word. That was from someone else. And then on the bad side of things, unfortunately, which I know the city of Lakeland will be faced with this too, but Florida DOT will cut the transit system $1.45 million because of COVID coming up. And to date, even with that reduction, we're hoping to see no service reductions as kind of the goal of the Transit Authority. So that's what's going on with them.
Excellent recap. Thank you. Commissioner Madden?
So I hate to bring up sticky subjects at the end of the meeting, but I do feel like I would like to yield my time to Mr. Stewart to finish his letter. And I'll say that because looking at Texas, I think all of us worry about where we're going forward with energy. And it is so great to have coal right there with the workers that have worked here for so long and have that, wealth of knowledge and to be able to provide electricity affordably and reliably. And yet at the same time, I'm on the American Public Power Association Policymaker Committee meeting today, and the number one issue facing this administration and the new Congress is the climate crisis in their opinion. And we can argue whether their opinion is correct or not, but this is like a global focus. It's not just Joel Ivey and it's not just Lakeland Electric. It's really a global initiative to get cleaner. And so, I feel like we are all sympathetic to all of the Lakeland Electric workers who have given their blood, sweat, and tears to our organization and to provide affordable electricity, so reliably. I think all of us worry about not having the ability to put coal in that furnace and to provide electricity. I think Texas is a huge wake-up call for the country and the world about the importance of having diversified fuel. And yet our hands are tied in some regard that unless, we decide collectively around the world that we're not going cleaner, it doesn't look like there's any way, with the tide and the tsunami of energy going away from coal, that we would be able to do anything different than what we're doing. But at the same time, I don't want you to feel not heard. And so if I could yield my time just for him to finish his letter.
So if you'd like to yield an additional 2 minutes, is that what you're saying? Okay. That's if you would like to accept that, Mr. Stewart.
I would love to. Thank you.
Okay.
I'll try to read it quick. Again, please don't think that this can't happen to Florida or LE. Just remember that Christmas freeze in 1989 when Florida was purchasing power from out of state. Also, recent Texas freezes did have an impact on Florida and LE. Natural gas usage was curtailed and sent to the northeastern Texas. This drives the cost of natural gas up and made coal the cheaper power for power generation. Unit 3 ran at maximum load to supply power to Lakeland Electric customers during that time. And I think Unit 5 was actually shut down at that time, so it's a good thing we had Unit 3. So as it stands, when you shut down Unit 3 and have to pay clearinghouse price, chip price, wholesale power, for the foreseeable future to make up for LE's power shortage, we're at the mercy of Mother Nature and Murphy's Law. Using Texas's problem as a wake-up call, I think it'd be prudent to continue to run Unit 3 if possible, until such time as we have a new unit producing power to take its place. Texas's wind turbines froze up and produced nothing when power was needed the most. Solar power is unreliable. We ultimately need reliable, cheap power. Just as a footnote, because you were talking about clean power, it takes approximately 640 acres, 1 square mile, to produce 74 megawatts of solar power. And that's on 100% output on a sunny day. And we don't usually have that. Just another concern I had, I seen the purchase and sales agreement between the City of Lakeland and OUC to buy OUC's ownership interest in Unit 3's land. And I know that y'all haven't finalized that yet, but I read it, and we're ultimately going to pay them $482,400 and then absolve them of any and all environmental liability, including hazardous and toxic materials. LE and the City of Lakeland assume full responsibility for this now. Why would Lakeland Electric, City of Lakeland, do such a thing? Has any testing been done to make sure that in all the years that City of Lakeland and OUC co-owned Unit 3 that no environmental issues exist within the property and that LE ratepayers will not be holding the bag for expensive site cleanups? Thanks. I appreciate your time.
Commissioner Reed.
I really have nothing to say. I just need to talk to Ruben before he, don't leave, Ruben. I need to talk to you after the meeting.
Okay. Commissioner McLeod.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of items. So last week there was a Polk Regional Water Cooperative Workshop. I don't know if anybody attended that. The mayor and I were on that meeting, and we have our own PRWC workshop coming. That was encouraged at the end of that meeting, was that for all of those who are members, for your full commissions to be briefed on the results of mediation. I felt like there's some encouraging direction in terms of getting all of the players on the same page as it relates to alternative water supplies. So more coming on that. It's enlightening for me to hear from a big picture standpoint. I know we talked about water at strategic planning, but just what are the implications in the coming years? And it's regional, it's statewide, it's huge. And so just stay tuned for that, Mayor. I don't know if you have any, you and I were on that. So that's coming. And the second thing is back to, we had the affordable housing workshop this morning, and I wanted to mention that as the Commission's representative on the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee, that's a legislative mandated position that we have an elected official on that committee. So I had the opportunity to attend a Central Florida regional call with colleagues who are on their committees as well. And I think we continue to reiterate, as we did this morning, but as we're meeting with whether it's Peace or other groups in the community, that our approach, the city has made significant strides in the area of affordable housing. And I've really seen that over the past few years. Prior to me coming on the commission, I think there's a lot of great work that's being done, and continuing in that direction is key. And we can certainly have discussion and debate on the specifics and different levels, but I think there's a strong message there for the work that has been done, the priority that this commission has made in the area of affordable housing, even if there's not an affordable housing trust fund in place. As I was listening to other elected officials talk about their efforts, I would put what we're doing here in Lakeland up against anybody. So I think that's significant. That's something that we just continue to stress as we're talking to different groups.
Excellent, concur. All right, any other comments at all? City Manager, do you have anything else you want to say? All right. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And a second? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same. Unanimously passes. We're adjourned.